Call the meeting of the Township Board to order. We'll ask members and guests in the audience to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. A roll call, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Wade?
Here.
Trustee Matuzak?
Here.
Trustee Kress?
Present.
Supervisor Gillaham?
Here.
Trustee King?
Present.
Treasurer Aiello?
Present.
Clerk Meltzer here.
Okay. Approval of the agenda. Ms. Meltzer, I'm seeing 10 items.
Yes,
And there was
add-on.
a number 9 being removed. Is that correct?
Item, add-on, the add-on is being deleted, yes.
Okay.
Say again.
Add-on, the add-on has been deleted.
Number 9 is gone. Okay, got it.
Okay. We need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Treasurer Aiello,
I'll support it.
supported by Trustee Wade. A roll call.
Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Supervisor Gillaham?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Clerk Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Okay. Clerk Meltzer, for the purposes of a public service announcement.
Yes, also, if I can find it. Um, I'm sorry, and I know you said go fast, I'm so sorry. All right, I'll just wing it. Okay, so often what happens, or first and foremost, I wanted to let you all know, the agenda doesn't have, just because you might be an item number 10 or an item number 1, doesn't necessarily mean that's the number you requested to be placed on the agenda. So sometimes we move things around. It has nothing to do with the order in terms of when it was requested to be placed on the agenda. So if anybody has concerns about that, don't concern yourself. We do that for managing certain petitioners that are here have other events they have to be to. They may be the last person to make the request on the agenda, but be first on the agenda. So don't worry about that. If you ever have any issues with placing anything on the agenda, you can let my office and the clerk's office know, and we will move it accordingly. To access the agenda from home, you go to clintontownship.com. And then scroll down to the very bottom where you see a calendar and find the date of the board meeting, which is this one right here. Sometimes there's other dates on that calendar, but for this purposes of this meeting, there was just that. Then in the upper right-hand corner, there is what's called Download Agenda. Click on that, and you'll proceed to the site, which is a third-party site, which is our agenda management system. And there you can find access to the full agenda as well as the backup information that are in the paper clips. So I wanted to give that information to you and to the public so you all understand exactly how easy it is to access the agenda, to learn what's on the agenda, and also the board packet. That's it. Thank you, Supervisor Gillaham.
Thank you, Ms. Meltzer. Item number 1, the consent agenda. Total of 3 items.
Move approval of the consent agenda as printed.
Support?
I support.
Okay, moved by Trustee Matuzak, supported by Treasurer Aiello. Any discussion? Roll call?
Trustee Matuzak.
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello. Treasurer Aiello.
Yes.
Trustee Wade.
Yes.
Trustee Kress.
Yes.
Supervisor Gillaham.
Yes.
Trustee King.
Yes.
Clerk Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Okay, item number 2, request approval for a temporary structure at Juan Miguel's Mexican Restaurant on Hull Road for their Cinco de Mayo
To
celebration.
whom it may concern, I would like to introduce myself as Mr. Kevin Abdallah, and I'm the owner of Juan Miguel's Clinton Restaurant LLC in Clinton Township. We are requesting to be placed on the board agenda to seek a temporary tent approval in the Chippewa Valley Shopping Center to host our 12th annual Cinco de Mayo party on Monday, May 5th, 2025. We have already begun the preparation and necessary steps with the State of Michigan Liquor Control Commission to be able to serve alcohol on the premises in the tent where the party will be taking place. My contact information is listed above if there are any questions or concerns. Sincerely, Kevin Abdallah.
Just to add one more thing, to accept cash in the tent as well, which I forgot.
Yes, okay. So that is added to the request.
Yes.
Okay. You want to spend a minute and tell us what's going on?
So I brought Paul with me just in case if I didn't show up. I didn't know if I was, so I said, hey, it's better to bring the manager just in case. I've done the party continuously for 12 years. I've never ran into any issues at all. Except I believe last year there was a small incident where a husband and wife got into it, or husband and ex-wife. But overall, never had any issues. It's usually a family event. And we provide alcohol, there's music out there, a tent and DJ, and it just to kind of carry over the spillover to allow the restaurant to handle the business.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve as requested, including the ability to accept cash in the tent.
I'll second that.
Okay, I'm going to make a judgment call and say it was trustee Kress as the support.
Mr. Supervisor?
Trustee Matuzek.
Love the event. It's always great.
Thank you.
Just, I guess this is more directed to our building department. I know this is an event we've done forever. Nothing really changes, but it would be really helpful if there were just a little hand-drawn diagram about where the tent's at in the,
In the packet?
yeah.
Oh, okay. You know what, he provides that to us during the permitting process. Fire and building both review that.
No, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong, but just to make decision-making easier, having it in the packet would be great.
Okay, well, I can forward you guys a copy of it for
I'm
the
fine.
future, but I apologize.
But just, because there's one coming up later that does have a little diagram on it, and it was
Fair
just
enough.
nice. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Next year, I'll make sure to add it into the packet.
But the short answer, same as last year?
Same as last year.
All right.
Okay.
I've been there. I know where the tent is.
Thank
but-
you.
All right.
Also, congratulations on your new baby on the way.
Yes,
Any
baby's
day?
on the way. Yeah. Nice second.
He wants to get out of here.
That's right.
All right, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Clerk Meltzer, yes. Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzek?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Motion passes.
As always, you guys are always invited. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Congratulations,
Item number 3, introduce and publish fee ordinance waiver provision with the intent to adopt at the next regular meeting.
Dear board members, in an effort of supporting our local schools and community, I would like to request waiving the $75 building department food truck fee for township school events. School events are held for the benefit of the student body or are fundraising efforts that will assist student extracurricular activities. By waiving the fee, it will ease the financial burden on our schools and ultimately our students. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter. Sincerely, Bruce Wade, trustee.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Dolan.
yeah, this matter was presented and discussed at the last regular meeting. Concerns were raised. All of those concerns were taken into consideration. A revision of the ordinance was produced. That is what is included, and that is what is being asked to be introduced with the intent to adopt tonight.
So just to be clear, Mr. Dolan, if I may, the clarification is to allow, to still require that they submit for a permit, but that they have the fee waived because it's a public entity.
What it is the location is where the fee will be waived. The remaining provisions that deal with the actual food truck that would go to the location are undisturbed. And Mr. Miller, I see him nodding his head, he reviewed it as well, and I believe doesn't have any objections as presented.
Mr. Miller?
I concur. Things are exactly as they should be. The review process will still take place. I've actually got 2 applications in my office right now for 2 schools that are already looking at this for April events. So The adoption of this on the April 14th meeting, assuming all goes well, will allow for them both to get their fees waived. But the review will be done. Fire has already reached out to both of the vendors to let them know we only have one truck that's been inspected, so hopefully they will send their trucks to fire to get inspected prior to their events.
Okay. Mr. Dolan, for proper form, so this is the opening of the public hearing on the ordinance change?
Well, yeah, we always ask for public input on that. And
Okay.
this is obviously the first of what will be two considerations of this by the board, because it's a regulatory ordinance under the Charter Township Act, so it takes two meetings to actually enact it.
Okay, do we
First,
need a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
No, I'm just
support.
asking if we
Well-
need that motion.
We don't really need to, we can just accept
Okay,
commentary from the public on this, because what we're doing is we're introducing and publishing.
Okay.
That will be the motion, is to introduce and publish.
okay. Members of the public, on this agenda item? Going once? Twice? We'll entertain a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to support this and move forward with it. And with that, I just want to thank Mr. Roberts out there from the schools. They're really great neighbors, and we have a lot of interaction. It's always very positive. So I'd like to make a motion to support this.
To introduce and publish?
Yeah, introduce and publish.
Okay.
I'll support.
All right, been moved by trustee Wade, supported by trustee Matuzek. Any further discussion from the board? Roll call?
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzek?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Clerk Melcher, yes. Motion passes.
Item number 4, request approval for St. Paul of Tarsus to hold a parish picnic on September 14th, 2025.
St. Paul of Tarsus Parish Picnic located at 41300 Romeo Plank Road in Clinton Township. The date of the event is September 14th of 2025 on the parish grounds, and it starts at 1 p.m. and it ends at 5 p.m. Setup will be at 11 a.m. and tear down at 5:30 p.m. The parish picnic description is, the parish picnic is to celebrate St. Paul of Tarsus parishioners, their friends, and family. The picnic is a one-day event to occur in the afternoon on a Sunday, September 14th, starting at 1 p.m. Food, soft drinks, music by way of DJ, and multiple kids' games and activities will be provided. This is a family celebration and no alcohol will be served. The picnic is self-funded through a raffle which will be held on the parish grounds at 4:30 p.m. on the day of the picnic. Michigan State license acquired. Food will be provided free of charge to attendees, including hot dogs, chips, and beverages, and etc. And then the map is also included.
Okay, questions from the board? Clerk Meltzer.
Thank you. The petitioner, can he come to the microphone? Just a quick question. Has this been done before? Have you guys done this before?
We did it several years ago.
Okay.
But not in recent time, no.
It's been a while, yeah. Yeah, 10 years?
10 years ago.
Was it? Okay.
10 years ago.
Okay. And no issues then, right?
No issues with that.
Okay.
And we even picked a different day so it did not coincide with Festival of the Senses.
Oh,
So that our
nice.
parking lot is available for
For overflow?
guests.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And I have tickets if it, no.
Okay. Further questions, discussion?
I'll make a
from the board?
motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Moved by Clerk Meltzer, supported by Treasurer Aiello. Questions from the public? A roll call?
Clerk Melcher, yes. Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Trustee Cross?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item number
We're
5.
all invited if you'd like to stop.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
so
Supervisor
much.
Gilliam and the Township Board, thank you very much.
Item number 5, variance to Chapter 1470 Drainage Ordinance.
Dear Honorable Board members, the Department of Public Services received a request for a review of a plot plan located at 23812 Buckingham. The applicant, Habitat for Humanity, provided signed and sealed plans for an engineering review. Our consulting engineer, Anderson Eckstein and Westrick, reviewed the plans and identified issues regarding the proposed drainage system design and the limitations of the existing site conditions. Excuse me. An enclosed storm sewer with drainage structures is required in Chapter 1470.065, items parent A to parent D, Clinton Township Draining Chapter of the Clinton Township Ordinances. Following the terms of this ordinance, the applicant's design engineer was not able to provide a long-term sustainable solution. The Department of Public Services also reviewed the specific issues regarding the site drainage conditions and agreed that a design that varies from the drainage standards would be best suited for this specific circumstances. The proposed solution includes omitting the enclosed storm sewer system and constructing a swale draining into the Stepnitz Street right-of-way. A road swale will then be graded to provide positive drainage along the road to match ditch and culvert grades to the south of the property. Site-specific issues that justify the need to this variance are due to, 1, a shallow road drainage system along Stepnitz Street. Number 2, no pre-existing rear yard enclosed drainage system for storm connection. And 3, lack of nearby enclosed drainage system to connect a proposed storm sewer at the required depths. These conditions satisfy the following terms of granting a variance as noted in Chapter 1242.03 of the Code of Ordinances. This is a special circumstance affecting this situation. Strict application of the provisions of ordinance would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the property. The variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights of the applicant. Granting of the variance will not be unduly detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property in the township. The variance will not have the effect of nullifying the interest and purpose of the ordinance, nor violate the provisions of other state or federal regulations. Chapter 1470.065, item H, reverts to Title VI of Part 12 of the Codified Ordinances, which enables the Director, Public Services, the discretion to take variance requests to the Clinton Township Board of Trustees for issuance. It is our recommendation for the Township Board to accept a variance to Chapter 1470.065, items parent A to parent D of the Clinton Township Drainage Chapter for the proposed development of this property. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Mary Bednar, Director of Public Services.
Okay, my compliments for reading that so succinctly. That was a long one,
It
Ms.
is.
Meltzer.
Been doing it a while.
Ms. Bednar, anything you need to add to that?
So I wanted to make sure I referenced every ordinance and what made sure that you knew, but in essence, they're asking for a variance on the rear yard storm system. After looking at it and looking at the engineering and so forth, myself as well as our consulting engineer are recommending that, and it needs to come to the board for your guys' approval.
Okay, and so they being specifically Habitat for Humanity, this was a lot that was sold by the township to Habitat, and they are looking to build, and this variance will allow that to occur. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I see Glenn from Habitat, Mr. Rothenhauser. I had that right. Anything you wanted to add, sir?
Nothing,
Step to the podium. Good.
nothing really to add, other than we are really happy to be part of the community here and look forward to getting started building on this house.
Well, we appreciate the work that Habitat has done, particularly building houses. We had a great partnership with Dakota High School many years ago. Unfortunately, that fell apart, but we had Habitat for many, many years, us obtaining the lots, selling them to Habitat, Habitat building houses, and it really produced a rejuvenation in a neighborhood that was struggling. And so that's attributable to your organization as well as the school program, and I'd like to think the Township Board had a nice part of it as well.
Well, thank you. We look forward to continuing this relationship.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We need a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
Moved by Treasurer Aiello, supported by Trustee King. Any further discussion? Trustee Matusek, then Trustee Wade.
through the chair to Ms. Bednar, I think the rain swale is a creative way to solve a problem that benefits both Habitat for being able to build this house and the township for getting a new house in the property. Can you describe the benefits of a rain swale? I mean, I know some of them, they collect the rainwater, they keep a lot of the rainwater out of the stormwater system. But can you elaborate a little bit on that?
So the purpose of this one is to keep the flow above water, above ground. It's going to be, I like to refer to it as a shallow ditch. People will be able to run in it and stuff. It's not, a deep ditch like you see in the roadway, but it will convey the water. The nice thing about this, and it's a bonus, is because you're not putting water into a pipe and you're letting it flow over land, some of the water will infiltrate into the ground, which causes less impact on the, stressed storm sewers and infrastructure that's in that area. But this one will not, this will be planted with grass, and it's not gonna have like we have here at the Civic Center with the different plants that actually suck up the water. This is gonna be just grass, but you will see some of the water evaporate or infiltrate into the ground.
Thank you.
The future homeowners, Ms. Bednar, will be responsible for maintaining that?
Yeah, but again, though, it's more, they'll just be mowing it like their mower will be able to go over. It's not a deep, it's just kind of an impression that tells the water to go this way.
Okay. And hopefully we'll be able to avoid Phragmites like all other.
Again, that one won't, though. That's not deep enough for frag.
All right. Very good. Any further discussion? Oh, Bruce, excuse me. Trustee Wade.
Just real quick, is there any other lots in the area that you think this would be applicable to?
Well, like any good variance or waiver, we wait for someone to bring it to us and we look at it. So each one is handled on its own merit.
Okay.
I can answer a question you didn't ask, and that is this has been waived in other lots throughout the township through the same process here. But we do look at it. We would still prefer to get it into a pipe and so people don't have any kind of pond, but in this case, because of the shallow outlet and so forth, this is the solution.
Okay.
Further discussion? A roll call, please.
Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Clerk Melcher, yes. Motion passes.
Item number 6, request to establish an executive committee.
Dear Honorable Board members, this executive committee proposal is of vital importance because I believe that the manner in which we handle the business of the township is dysfunctional and broken. We, this board, were elected by our constituents to handle the business of the township and ultimately vote to control the direction and the spending of taxpayer monies. The system in place now, if you want to call it a system, circumvents and strips the totality of the board of its obligation to make these fundamental decisions. This broken system and the person or persons that control it are currently leaving a minority portion of the board uninformed by making these overreaching decisions to send items directly to Budget Ways and Means. This currently unchecked power ultimately leaves our entire board at a disadvantage to make educated decisions. In short, this new committee will be tasked with which and what Clinton Township matters go before the board directly for consideration, deliberation, decisions, and which matters will be sent to committee. Thank you, Dan Kress, trustee.
Trustee Kress?
The intent of the executive committee is pretty well stated in here, but as a practice, if I could ask the chair, how is it determined what goes to Budget Ways and what comes before the board?
Board members make a call as to if they want something to go to Budget Ways and Means, or directors throughout the township will say, hey, this is an item that is not budgeted, but we believe it rises to the level of importance that we want the board to consider it, so it will then go to Budget Ways and Means. I don't want to speak for the chair, but I was the former chair of Budget Ways and Means, and that's how it worked when I chaired it. And quite frankly, any board member can bring their items to Budget Ways and Means.
Okay. See, that's
See,
right.
and I don't think that that's broken.
Well, I
the
think it's
way.
broken because someone other than this board or a committee determines what goes before Budget Ways and Means and what doesn't. Budget Ways and Means is an entity all of itself. There's four board members that sit on Budget Ways and Means. So if something goes to Budget Ways and Means and we don't direct it to go to Budget Ways and Means, they could effectively come to council after the conclusion of Budget Ways and Means, and they have 4 votes. If they come to us with 4 votes, that renders the other three of us, irrelevant. So I think matters of importance should go directly to the board, and I think there should be a committee that is the gatekeeper, that says, this is very important, this should go directly to the board, and this is a budgetary issue where we need to evaluate pricing on swing sets or what's the best deal on a vehicle, and that should go to Budget Ways and Means. But everything funneling through Budget Ways and Means prior to making it to this board, for instance, Chick-fil-A, I don't know why Chick-fil-A went to Budget Ways and Means prior to coming here. Whatever presentation they put on for Budget Ways and Means should have been here for all in attendance and home on watching it on cable. I think that we're making a misstep by sending everything to Budget Ways prior to coming to the board. I think bring it to, if we don't have an executive committee, if nothing else, bring everything to the board and let the 7 of us determine where it goes. But if that's the pleasure of the board, but having an executive committee, like I said, the gatekeeper, saying what issues are of importance, important enough to go before the 7 elected members to make decisions, that's the gist of it. I think right now, when you say directors, or I'm not exactly sure, I still don't, even what the short statement you made, I don't know what the criteria is to have something go to Budget Ways and Means or the board. So all I'm trying to do is establish something where it's not necessarily making decisions about issues, but it's saying where the issue should go to be best addressed.
Mr. Dolan, correct me if I'm wrong, but Budget Ways and Means, like all of our committees, is a recommending body, right? It's to allow an issue to go before a committee, bring in the relevant staff people, and make decisions very much like the Refuse Committee is currently operating, so that a smaller group of board members and staff can dive in and then make a recommendation, but the recommendation doesn't always come with a positive recommendation.
The Budget Ways and Means has gone over has had some transformation over time. Initially, when it started out, it was less than a quorum of the board. It was clearly at all times then a recommending body, and still, even after it transformed, which occurred because there was a recognition that the supervisor as a ex officio member could attend.
Under
That
the
put us
previous
to a point-
supervisor,
that put
correct?
us- Correct, under the previous supervisor. That put us at a point where we had a quorum of the board. So the Budget Ways and Means, as it's constituted now, actually has to provide all the same notices and act with regard to the Open Meetings Act in the same way that the board does. But the Budget Ways and Means basically does receive information, operates somewhat in a more of a dialogue fashion. It meets over in room 200 around the table, and then at the conclusion of the consideration of the items, there usually is a recommendation with regard to the item, the questions that are on the item that will be presented to the board and passed on. But there are some instances where nothing occurs, rather infrequent, or other instances where the item that's seeking approval, the recommendation may be denial. So usually it's a recommendation that's to give some further information to the board, which is the next step afterward.
So it sounds to me like what you're saying is that when an item goes to Budget Ways and Means, it can be passed on to the board with a recommendation, with no recommendation, or it could be
With an
sent
adverse
someplace else for
recommendation.
further action.
Right. Well, yeah, those are all different options. Now, after an item is considered by the Budget Ways and Means, regardless of what the decision is that's made on a recommendation basis, the item still could be brought to the board itself by members of the board.
So any member could say, hey, yeah, the Budget Ways and Means took this up. I got all the notes because it's a public meeting. And so we have somebody there actually taking the minutes. And as a result of that, they can dive into it and say, hey, I really think the board should be looking at this.
Well, regardless of what level of consideration is going on at any particular time by Budget Ways and Means, under the way we operate now, board members are permitted to present items for consideration by the township board. So irrespective of where an item is in the Budget Ways and Means process, it could be brought to the board. Nothing's stopping that, but typically what we've done historically is waited for items to be completed through the Budget Ways and Means process and then considered it after it's gone through that process if it was directed there in the first place.
I seem to recall that there's been issues that have come to the board that members have then said, hey, we think this needs a little bit more study and we should send it to Budget Ways and Means.
There have been instances where it comes to the board and goes back to Budget Ways and Means, if that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and because Budget Ways and Means is an open committee and it's noticed, and there's 4 members that are on it because of this ex officio status of the supervisor position, that means that any member of the board could attend the Budget Ways and Means if there was an issue on the agenda that they really cared about.
Yes, the board members and members of the public are all able to attend based on the fact that because we have a quorum present, it is subject to the Open Meetings Act. So public, the state Open Meetings Act requires that the public be allowed to attend a meeting that's subject to it and also allows that at some point there be an opportunity to comment at that meeting too.
Right. So, Mr. Dolan, you've been a municipal attorney for a very long time. Are you familiar with legislative bodies that don't have committees? That vet issues before they come to the board? To help kind of gain the input and gain the better understanding and seek the input of the staff and the directors who are...
I've seen some that don't, but I would say that, and there are more that do than don't.
Okay.
And
All right.
so that's how I would answer it. I mean, I can think of one that doesn't, but I can think of more that do. The county, for example, obviously operates with committees.
So, Trustee Kress, so you're suggesting that rather than go to Budget Ways and Means, which is an open meeting, which is available to the public, they can attend, you would prefer it going to a committee of just 3 people, so rather than meet in the open, we could meet in private on these issues?
You done? Yep.
It's a question.
I'll say it again, this would be a function as a gatekeeper, not a deliberative body. That's what we are. And you said it yourself in 2017 that we're a deliberative body and that's what we're here for, is to deliberate things. I'm just saying that if something of importance, there's a gatekeeper. No decisions are made other than steering it to Budget Ways and Means or steering it directly here, so that something of importance to our citizens and such isn't talked about at 9:30 on a Tuesday in a room down the hallway. I've asked for it to be televised. I've asked for it to be recorded. Neither one is a possibility to my understanding. So what transpires in that room matters to our constituents. And for instance,
So
I'm
who's
looking
going to
at
be serving on this committee?
three people, yourself. No, but this, we're talking about it, Paul. I don't know what
Yeah,
you're looking at the piece of paper for.
I'm looking at the piece of paper because I'm wondering
Okay.
where
then
it
I'm gonna
discusses
answer your
who's actually
question.
on.
Three of us. Yourself, Kim, me, or Mike, and either Mike or myself as an alternate. And like I said, and I'll read this. The existing Budget Ways and Means meeting can still be scheduled, but will receive its agenda from the Executive Committee. The Executive Committee will meet once per month prior to the Budget Ways and Means meeting schedule. So the Executive Committee would get together and say, listen, this, we're looking at pricing on swing sets, or looking at pricing on a pickup truck. Let's send it to Budget Ways and Means to do the analysis, to give us a recommendation what the best deal is, or what makes sense.
So in order to go to Budget Ways and Means, it would first have to pass muster of the 3 full-time elected officials or their alternate
Yep.
before it can get on the agenda, when right now, it can go on by any member or any staff person requesting that it be discussed.
You're exactly
So
right.
would you consider that more or less restrictive?
I'm more efficient, is what I would call it. It's not restrictive, because it
Wait,
doesn't
it's
go
gotta
there
go
to
through an
die.
additional hurdle
It doesn't-
before it can go to Budget Ways and Means. That seems to be more restrictive to me.
It's not restrictive. It's more precise as to where relevant issues go.
Okay, right now, any member can take an issue to Budget Ways and Means. After this, it has to pass the muster of the 3 full-time elected
And it'll
officials
either come
before
here-
it can be discussed.
It'll either come here, or it'll go to Budget Ways and Means. It's as simple as that. It doesn't get lost in the shuffle. It doesn't get buried.
I don't see things being lost in the shuffle right now,
The
and I don't see it as a broken system.
It is a very broken system, because.
How so?
Because that's where the majority of the monies are gifted or spent or allocated. And, hold on,
I would disagree with that,
I'll give
but-
you a for instance. I'll give you a for
Okay.
instance. Let's say Budget Ways and Means is tasked with evaluating the color we're gonna paint this building. Okay? And in Budget Ways and Means, they come up and they say, no, we're gonna paint the building purple. All 4 members agree. They said, you know what? Purple's the in thing. We're gonna paint the building purple. And they bring it to us, 4 votes secured. The other 3 of us don't have an input. I mean, I don't mean to trivialize it that much, but it's.
I think that's
That is
very much
but
true.
it's a very good example of the 4 people bringing a matter to us that may very well been better discussed in a public forum like this. I think a public forum is more appropriate for some of the things they discuss.
So, Trustee Kress, I appreciate you bringing this before the board, but Clerk Meltzer and Treasurer Aiello came to me saying that they wanted additional communication. And so
What
we
do you
set
mean,
up a
additional
process.
communication?
We set up a process to meet. It was originally proposed as once a month. I suggested that we meet, the 3 of us, as the full-time elected officials and administrators of departments, that we meet every Wednesday prior to the board agenda going out, so that I would have a better sense as to what's being placed on the agenda, and then we could talk about some of these larger issues.
Well, that's nice that you're having a meeting, but you're overstepping your job description. It's
I don't
not-
think so at all.
No, and if we want to, as a
How
board,
so? How so am I overstepping?
because you're saying that you're talking, the 3 of you, at your leisure is, and by your dictate, that you're going to do this, that is you assuming that you can play the role and you select the members as to where it goes. Nobody, we haven't,
That's
we
not what I'm
haven't,
suggesting at all.
I know, but we
I'm
haven't,
suggesting that I want to make sure that there's open communication
So am I.
between the people who came to ask for more communication.
Yep, and there's nothing wrong with the director coming to the executive committee and saying, hey, I want this discussed, I need a new truck, or I need this. And if it's a budgetary issue, fantastic.
So
Send it-
using,
send it.
all right, you also stated that that's where the majority of the money is spent. Well, the majority of the money is spent actually in the budget process and the development of a budget that comes before the entire board, which we created a process by which we had several meetings on the budget prior to the adoption of the budget and even the public hearing, so that all members had an opportunity, not just to hear from finance and the administration, but they also had a chance to hear from every single director. So that's where the majority of money is decided upon, and that's done specifically by the board.
Well, obviously, there's a budget. I'm just saying that when a director wants something, they're not standing at the podium. They're going to Budget Ways and Means.
Right.
And if they can convince 4 people in Budget Ways and Means, then they've secured whatever it is they're seeking.
So the board members asked to have more of our directors here when there's an item coming up that impacts their department. I directed that as the administrator. So you can ask those same questions because they're here. When an item from Budget Ways and Means comes to the board, you now have that opportunity to ask those questions.
Okay.
I don't remember too many
I
instances
don't
of
want
you
to
actually
belabor
doing
this,
that.
but I don't want to belabor this. But for instance, why in the world would Chick-fil-A go to Budget Ways and Means prior to coming here in front of an audience of constituents that are concerned about it? I looked at the tape yesterday. This body rezoned the old Fifth Third Bank, and it took 20 minutes. So whatever glossy presentation they put on for Budget Ways and Means, we weren't privileged to. The 3 members that were not at Budget Ways and Means, and I know you're going to say I'm welcome to attend, but I don't think that was the place to have the presentation.
Did you ask for that presentation to be presented at the board meeting?
I think this room is the appropriate spot to have a presentation something that carries that much gravity, that much impact to our residents.
Right, so you would prefer that the 3 full-time elected officials make that decision, then bring it to you?
No.
Is that what I'm hearing?
No, not the 3
Well,
times.
it can't go on Budget Ways and Means until it gets past this
Committee.
executive committee.
Yes.
Seems like a more
Mr.
restrictive
Supervisor?
process to me. But
Can we postpone, can I make a motion to postpone this to another meeting? I'll tell you why, or for it to go to Budget Ways and Means, how's that? Because
well, it could actually be
this-
developed then.
I'll tell you, yes, there's a development issue here. We have so many people in the audience. This is something that should be decided by a committee, quite frankly, to better understand exactly what you want to accomplish. And I don't see that happening in this discussion right now. And again, there's so many people here that are waiting to address their items. And I'd like us to postpone this till the next board meeting. And in the meantime, have a meeting at Budget Ways and Means to discuss it, or to have a meeting that, but I'm not putting the agenda item on Budget Ways and Means. It is not my item, but I think hashing this particular issue out here is, without having succinct ideas in place, is problematic.
Okay, is there support for that motion?
Mr. Supervisor, can we, so to clarify, the motion is to postpone to another date? Just that, right? Or, because you mentioned
Well, I
something
think
about
it's-
Budget Ways and Means, I'm not sure if you're saying postpone to another date and then refer to Budget Ways and Means, if you're saying just postpone to another date.
Budget Ways and Means is tomorrow, correct? The next
Correct,
one?
yes.
Let's discuss it tomorrow, postpone, and then it'll go on the next, we'll discuss it tomorrow, add it to the agenda. There's not a lot on Budget Ways and Means, so let's add it to the agenda tomorrow. It's going to be a public meeting. It's a good place to have it, not here, because these are agenda items that it wasn't intended to be like this. And then we'll bring it, so I'm going to postpone it till the next agenda item, or till the next board meeting.
Until the next board meeting.
to the next board meeting, and in between that time, tomorrow, we'll have the opportunity to discuss it.
Isn't the supervisor?
So wait, do we have support for that motion? Or are you asking to be recognized under a point of order?
That's a little leading, but
Well,
is there
it
anybody
but it sounded
seconding
like a
this or no?
question to me, so. on
Just,
the
we need a
motion, Are
second.
you looking for clarification on the motion?
I'm looking for clarification on the motion only because
Trustee King.
the Budget Ways and Means agenda's been posted, right? So I'm just arguing maybe.
We can add it. We can add it to tomorrow's agenda.
There's enough time to do that under the Open Meetings Act?
Yeah, you can add items to the agenda, yes.
So we're going to Budget Ways and Means to determine whether or not we send things to Budget Ways and Means.
No, to address your
Instead of
issue.
deliberating it here and coming to a
Address your
conclusion, we're
issue,
asking the body that I'm
Because this is going
trying
on
to.
and on and on, and between you and the supervisor, and there's people here that are here for other matters, that this should be, have been,
Well, which is precisely, I think, as you were stating, Ms. Meltzer, that's why we have committees, right?
that's right.
So we can kind of get these things vetted a little bit better, get all the questions answered, seek all the input, and then be able to bring issues before the board that make sense. Not that there won't be questions, or
Yeah.
not that there won't be disagreements, but the fact is, committees are a helpful process in the
That's what I'm trying to
legislative
form right now, is a
environment.
committee. You know that, right?
Yeah, but you're making the system more restrictive in my.
No, I'm not. I'm making it.
Okay, trustee Matuzak.
Well, I have one question related to the motion, which is the maker of this idea available to come to Budget Ways and Means tomorrow morning at 9:30 in room 300 or 200?
No, I'm not.
Then it makes no sense to put it on the agenda.
I guess you're right. Well, we'll postpone to let me amend that then.
Why don't you just table it?
I'll bring it back at the next board meeting. So, anybody needs to reach out to me if there's any
We need a second.
misunderstandings.
Yeah, trustee Wade.
Motion to table.
Okay, hold on.
Am I, what's going on?
Can I get a second? Somebody give me a second?
No, hold on, Kim.
Are we
Let's
gonna keep
clean-
moving?
Let's clean up the parliamentary, where we're at.
That's
So
what I was
you were, as the maker of the motion, you're withdrawing your motion, and your support is withdrawing also. So now
there was
there
no
was no
no support.
Okay, so your motion dies for lack of support.
Yes.
Now we're making a second motion. Okay, let's go.
Motion to table.
I'll-
Been a
I'll-
motion to table. Is there
I'll support
support?
that. But I still want to talk.
Support?
I'll support it.
If he tables,
Okay.
can he have a discussion or
The
no?
motion has been moved.
Hold on a second. If he tables it, you can't have discussion.
I,
If it's postponed.
Postpone.
Talk.
Postpone it.
Can I-
I'm tabling it. Let's move
She
on,
moved the
folks.
table, so there's no discussion. If it's supported, it passes. Otherwise, you.
Is there a
can make
motion on the floor?
motion to Postpone later.
Do you want to withdraw your support so you can speak on the issue?
yeah, can I do that, and at the end of it, I'll
There you
make
go.
I'll motion that, but
Trustee Wade.
couple things I think we should do. I think, and I hate to say this because it didn't work last time, but maybe if the two of you or three of you or whoever, maybe come up with some improvements to Budget Ways and Means. And I just heard a couple things thrown out. No, please, let me just talk. A couple things that I think would help is, the first one is, it was mentioned about televising it. Can we get it televised? The second thing is, if somebody comes there with a presentation, tell them that they have,
Mr. Buchel, I have you under public participation.
if
Thank
they
you,
come
Mr.
with a
Wade.
presentation, ask them to come and do the same presentation to the board. So I think those are a couple things that maybe we can mitigate and kind of bring this closer together. I mean, because if maybe we try to improve the process, maybe we can all walk away feeling satisfied. But those were just two things that I heard mentioned that maybe would improve the process.
Okay, what I think would improve the process is when Mr. Kress wants to just avert all of the other committees and throw stuff on the board agenda, it would be great if he could return a phone call. That's what I think would be
Well,
a great
see,
way to improve the process.
Mr.
Trustee,
Supervisor, I don't have any knowledge of that.
Trustee
All I'm
Matuzak.
trying to do is just, well, I wasn't finished.
Oh, okay.
You kind of took my conversation over.
Okay.
I'm just trying to come to a way so we can maybe improve the process and move on, and all of us feel we're getting out of this system what we want. And the citizens, they could dial it up on YouTube and watch it anytime they wanted. That would be, I think, at least one small improvement for the process.
Thank you.
Speak before you second the table.
Okay, I'll talk and then I'll.
Trustee Matuzek.
All right, so far tonight, my committee has been called dysfunctional, broken, and many other things. Any board member can bring any agenda item forward to the board. Doesn't have to go through Budget, Ways and Means. Doesn't have to go through any committee. Mr. Kress is a prime example of that. I am an example of that. The last thing on the agenda today, I didn't take to Budget, Ways and Means, I'm bringing it forward. Any person can do that. Budget, Ways and Means is a public meeting, open to anybody. Public comes. Mr. Bushell comes all the time. Other people come. Any member of this august body can come. Mr. Kress has come to Budget, Ways and Means once. Before I was chair of Budget, Ways and Means, which I just took over this year, I attended regularly when I wasn't even on the committee because I wanted to hear the discussion. Now that I am chair of Budget, Ways and Means, we have brought forward things with a recommendation to vote no. We have brought forward things with a recommendation to vote yes. We have brought forward things with no recommendation. We have encouraged people to come with their presentations, if they have them, before the board meeting. But the most important thing about Budget, Ways and Means, which anyone can also add something to the Budget, Ways and Means agenda, and it's an open meeting, let me repeat that, as opposed to an executive committee, which who knows who's even on it at this point. But the most important thing is that a department director gets an idea for something, and they bring it to Budget, Ways and Means with the other department heads that may have something relevant to say about that. And people toss around ideas, and they talk about, this is what I'm proposing, how would that affect your department? It's a way to break down the silos that we have among departments in Clinton Township. And sometimes people come and say, I have this idea, and another department will say, well, that's really going to affect us this way, this is going to work that way, this is not great. And the original proposal will say, oh, I got to go back and work on that some more. And then it may come back to Budget, Ways and Means, and then it is recommended or not recommended or comes with a recommendation for no to this body to do its work. So adding another committee that is a private committee, that is not a public committee, that seems like a really silly idea and adds one more layer and keeps the silos in place. And I think that's just silly.
Thank you, Trustee Matuzek. Trustee Kress.
So, once again, it's the only decision that the executive committee would make is where the relevant issues would go. That's it. That's it. It's not anything secretive, and I don't understand your paranoia regarding it, but probably because you now get to determine where things go, and that's not your job.
That is actually not true.
Mr. Supervisor, can I ask a clarifying question for Mr. Kress?
Trustee Matuzek.
Name me one thing that hasn't come, that you describe as dysfunctional and broken. One issue, one item that needs to come, that hasn't either come directly here or gone through Budget, Ways and Means, that is being hidden somehow.
I didn't say hidden. It's every issue, because we are elected officials, we should make the determination who analyzes it and where it goes. It's as simple as that. So every issue that's gone before Budget, Ways and Means, I believe should have been decided by a committee who determines if it's relevant, its relevance, and where it needs to go. It's as simple as that. They're not making any decisions. All they are is steering where the materials and the topic goes. It's as simple
So the
as that.
system where anybody can put something on Budget, Ways and Means is not appropriate?
No.
the system where anyone can add an agenda item to the board meeting is not appropriate?
They're welcome to bring agenda items forward, and then the executive committee determines what body views them. It's, the directors.
No, you
of
didn't
the-
answer my question.
Please-
My
please
question was,
clarify
you think that would be better than anyone simply being, any one of us allowed to add something to a board agenda?
Anybody can add it, but someone has to make a decision where it goes. And as it goes now,
My Prince Jewelry resolution that's coming up didn't go anywhere. I said, let's get it on the agenda, and lo and behold, it's on the agenda.
well, she can't take, no, you can't take it off. I don't want to belabor this because obviously the mood is to look at it the next meeting. And,
No, that's not my mood.
It's not the
Well,
motion.
my
Motion
mood
is
is
to table.
ridiculous,
Motion to
but-
table.
well, good for
Mr.
you.
Supervisor, can you ask somebody to second my motion to table, please?
Not table, postpone.
Motion to table?
Clerk Meltzer, I'm gonna hold off on recognizing you because Mr. Bushell is really, really anxious here.
Well, he can,
To,
he can, but just I need a second.
Not
Can I
on a
get a
motion to
second?
table, it can't be discussed. So
I'm gonna
allow discussion.
second it, just so you know.
I'm gonna allow discussion, public
You
participation.
guys are missing the point. These
Mr.
people are waiting.
Trustee-
Let's
Yeah,
get
well,
the ball rolling here.
I didn't add this to the agenda. I'm just trying to moderate a discussion here, which I find to be disingenuous.
Called deliberation is what it is.
As trustee Matuzak has said, I do come to the Budget Ways and Means, and I come to them just for the last year and a half or so because one of the odd things that was in front, and there's a couple more, but we were looking for something where it was dysfunctional. At the Budget Ways and Means, Velic Transportation came up, and the suggestion was that their site plan be changed and take half of the pavement away and make it half gravel. But then even the more outstanding idea was, and it was, she's right here, she can answer that, was to, because they didn't have any drainage system, let's just tap into McDonald's detention pond next door. And if they had decided to, needless to say, I put that on Facebook and everything all the next day, and it never came to pass, as far as I know. But at that point in time, because the board had already approved the site plan, it would have went right from Budget Ways and Means back to the planning department for a modified plan that would never come to you.
It didn't happen.
It didn't happen. It didn't happen because a resident was there and made it, but it was done in secret. And there again, another thing that.
You were at the meeting.
I was, because somebody told me if I hadn't been there, it would have went through.
Oh, okay.
But anyways.
This is not a back and forth, but Mr. Bushell, I'm going to explain to you what did happen at that meeting. That meeting was the engineers in the room trying to figure out how things could be done to accommodate a request from a business because what they were asking for didn't meet the rules. So they were presented a number of different options, and they were to then bring that issue back to the board or to the Budget Ways and Means Committee. They did not do any of that. So
Correct.
that was the process, in my opinion, Mr. Bushell, working.
But-
because they were presented options, they explored their options and realized that what they wanted couldn't have passed muster.
Well, and then.
So, Mr. Bushell, I thank you. What more do you have to say
One more-
on this issue or others?
Okay, this is a different issue at the Budget Ways and Means that I think, there again, the fact that they should be televised because there again, when the flock cameras and the computer program that goes with them, I was at that meeting also, and the presentation at the Budget Ways and Means gave a very different picture than what the public heard on the televised thing. It was the same policemen that were here to give the thing.
I got a great presentation I can share with you on the flock cameras. We'll add that to the agenda pretty soon. Thank you, Mr. Bushell.
Well, I'm saying, but the Budget Ways and Means, it was a very different presentation than there was when the public, it had a public presentation, and what was said at the public presentation was very different, and I think people would have had a much different idea. I'm just saying, they should be televised. A public meeting should be televised, especially being, the cable companies give money every year that funds it. It's not like it comes out of the township's budget.
Thank you, Mr. Bushell.
Yes.
I'm not sure how this is germane, but
It's germane because there again, trustee Matuzak
Thank
asked
you,
for
Mr.
any
Bushell.
extensions. Yes.
thank you. Mr. Duggar.
Thank you, Supervisor. Dana Duggar, 37852 Suburban, from the best neighborhood in this township. The key issue I see here is the fact that the Ways and Means Committee contains a quorum of this board, which, if that quorum decides on something, it is pretty much a given that it's going to the board. That, to me, is the problem in a nutshell, is the fact that it is a quorum of the board. Secondly, Mr. Supervisor, you referred to the Ways and Means of being like the Refuse Committee. A great, huge difference is the Refuse Committee is not meeting and the public is not invited to that. In the interest of transparency, these meetings should be open to the public, especially the Refuse Committee, which probably grants one of the largest contracts that we grant as a township. So that is my view, and I think transparency is the key to good government. And being transparent to those electors, information is needed to be disseminated
Mr.
fairly,
Duggar, are you
honestly.
speaking for or against the creation of an executive committee, which is the issue that is before the board?
I am speaking about what you are considering. The fact.
Well, Mr.
people-
Duggar, what we are
Sir, will you not
considering-
interrupt me, please? Let me
I want to
complete.
make sure that this discussion is germane to the
It
issue.
is to this
And the issue is.
And you are saying that the executive committee, by someone's thought, would be a closed committee. I did not hear that come from Mr. Kress, that it would be a closed committee, that it would not be an open. So I think the board should be careful not to put words in each other's mouths, to listen and to listen to your constituency. That is my message to this board. Thank you.
That is that. Okay. For the purposes of motion, Ms. Meltzer.
I made a motion to table.
I second.
Been moved and supported. Roll call.
Clerk Meltzer, yes. Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
No.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello?
No.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Motion to table passes. Okay.
That brings us to item number 7.
To your honorable board members, I find it a necessity to resume the conversation that ITC/Henry Ford Hospital matter of today's meeting. Our affected residents, as well as other valued taxpayers, including Henry Ford Hospital, located along 19 Mile Road corridor, deserves to see us use local government officials ultimately make a decision on the special land use and site development plan for the ITC Shrine interconnection project that has been proposed. It would seem to be apparent that from the very announcement of this project, that at the very least it was presumptuous that the 19-mile route would be acceptable to Clinton Township. Yet in all actuality, it would prove to be extremely detrimental to our residents, businesses, and taxpayers. Most believe it is a reckless disregard of personal property rights and would be a detriment to community aesthetics. The fact alone that our constituents and property owners are already in litigation with giant entities ahead of receiving the necessary approval of this board is unconscionable and begs that resolution be determined immediately. In addition, we need to put a stop to the reckless spending of taxpayer monies on this matter. Thank you, Dan Kress.
Trustee Kress.
The letter pretty much speaks for itself. It's been a long time, and we need to, my intent is to deny the special land use and site development plan for the ITC Shrine interconnection project. I don't know why we haven't denied it yet. I don't think we're giving ITC false hope. I think the mood of the board is to deny their plan to go down 19 Mile Road. There's numerous other ways to get there. The supervisor and myself have talked about Delcoma, and that seems to be the most obvious route. And I think that it's taken too long, and we're kind of getting off the rails because I understand recently you spent almost $7,000 of taxpayer money for a helicopter ride to analyze the flight path. And I see that as a waste of taxpayer money, because with our ordinance, we have the ability to deny it. We don't have to give them a reason, and we don't have to spend $7,000 to justify us denying the request.
Mr. Dolan, if this issue just simply gets denied without providing any justification, what happens then?
Well, there are different things that could happen. I mean, they could abandon the process they're in now. They could go back and try to redo the process by going to the Public Services Commission. The statute that they're proceeding on gave them the choice to either go before the local unit of government or go through the public service process. Our ordinance is in place, and it has standards, and in part uses the general standards that are part of there's an accepted body of law that involves them as they are used in the context of special land use. So there's some idea as to how they've worked in that context. We have that. We also have a reasonable practicality standard. In other words, if there's another route that is available and reasonable and doesn't have such an arduous impact on residential, that's another prong to the consideration under our ordinance. So we do have a process. It's an enacted ordinance. And at this point in time, we've had several meetings on it. At this point, I don't know what notification we gave directly to ITC prior to this meeting, but they certainly are in a position where if they wish to continue to proceed with this request, they can come before us or write a letter or whatever and ask us to reconvene, or we can on our own reconvene. If we do reconvene, I do think that so that the record is as clean as possible, that we should advise them that we are reconvening and that we are going to be considering whatever additional information is presented at the meeting, which of course they, as an interested party, can present, as well as all members of the public. Our job here is to look at the evidence, so to speak, that's presented under the ordinance, and to consider that and then make a decision using the provisions of the ordinance as the basis for our decision.
Those are a lot of words, but okay.
So
what I think I'm hearing you say is that if we are going to deny them, it would make the most amount of sense for us to inform them that we're reconvening the public hearing to deny them.
No, we're reconvening the public hearing to hear whatever additional evidence is presented and then to make a decision applying the standards. We're not reconvening to deny them.
Okay.
Some people may feel at this point that the evidence tips in favor of denying them, but we would want to complete the process of the hearing. We would want to make findings under the ordinance and then come to a decision. That's what
Let me
we're looking
restate
to
the
do.
question, Mr. Dolan. When we reconvene to make whatever decision, it makes the most amount of sense to let them know that we're reconvening.
Correct. The ball has somewhat been in their court. They have to seek local approval. It's been surprising to me that we haven't had previous requests from them to reconvene. They know full well that there's additional information that's available and that's been made available to us. If they reconvene and come before us, we can discuss that information with them. I don't see any faces that I'm familiar with from ITC here now. If someone is here, maybe they could step forward and come to the podium so that we could inquire what their intention is. Obviously, we're in a position where they know and they have heard from directly and also from other sources that we do have additional information that is relevant to the requirements of the ordinance. We know, for example, that we did in fact.
Mr. Dolan, I'm gonna see if I can cut you off right there because I want to bring up Mr. O'Leary. So the claims that were made was, we have to go down 19 Mile Road because Eagle would never allow for a wetland mitigation if it was required along the Delcoma route. Is that correct?
That was the claim, and it was untrue.
And how did we find out that that was untrue?
We met with Eagle.
Right. So ITC said, hey, we'll set up a meeting with Eagle with you, right? And our response was, we'll set up our own meeting with Eagle.
Right.
And can you characterize that meeting?
They were extraordinarily cooperative. They weren't aware, when the 19-mile route was presented to them, they said, hey, we have no problem with the route. That simply means they have no wetlands to govern on that route. It was never presented to them that there was an alternate route and that there were problems with the 19-mile route that the township had legitimate concerns with. When they learned that, and those problems are obvious to all of you, it's the impact on a major corridor for us, it's the impact on all those residential and so on. When they learned of that, they said, look, looking at the Delcoma route, we certainly would consider an application that talked about wetland mitigation. And, we would be very reasonable with that. Obviously, they can't say to us at the meeting, we will approve it until they see the application. But they said we'd be very reasonable with it. We do this all the time with ITC. We're not sure why there's a hesitation. And in fact, looking at it, we went and viewed the site with them, the Public Works Director and myself and a few others, and they weren't totally convinced that there was wetlands in the particular path that we were looking at. So, they're very open to the route, very open
Okay.
to hearing the route.
Okay, and so then the other claim was that they couldn't locate the lines down Delcoma because it would interfere with the hospital's helipad. This is, I think, the expenditure that Mr. Kress is referring to. And if we wanted to present evidence that we didn't believe, so we didn't believe that the power lines presented a true interference. We thought that issue was more of a red herring. So it was in our best interest to disprove that claim. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was a red herring. I mean, it was a throw anything at the wall to make it stick by that point, because when we were pushing back, they were looking for ways to undo what we were saying. So legal counsel advised us to take a strong look at this, do some research, talk to people who understand the rules. And he arranged the flight, and the reason for it was because we had to prove to ourselves that we had a strong case. This isn't just going to go before you. When you're done, let's presume that you all agree, or 4 of you agree to reject this. This is going to go to the MPSC. They're not going to stop. They're going to keep fighting you. And when it goes to the MPSC, you have to have a good argument prepared, because we're going to wind up intervening in that case. So you can't just walk away and say, well, we're just going to say no and everybody will be happy. You will lose because you're not prepared. You have to be prepared. We understand now that the obstacles they think are there would be there as a result of this are actually less of an obstacle than what's already there. There's actually a number of light posts right around the helipad that already violate the regulations in terms of size to distance to that helipad. So they're already in violation. The building and the canopy are already a violation. So to say that power lines 400 feet away are going to be a problem for their helipad is disingenuous at best. It's a red herring argument, and when you combine it with the wetland argument, their whole case falls apart. This is really all about convenience and finance and timing. They want to just get it done.
We also know that there is the existence of a county drain easement that's right there. And so responsible action was to make sure we communicated with the Public Works Office.
Well, that was another one of their representations, is that they couldn't put these power lines in the county drain easement. And again, that happens all the time. You initiated the call to Candace Miller. We all had a good discussion about it with Don Brown and Candace Miller, and it was another red herring. There is, as long as it's done right, there's a right and a wrong way to do things, they can do this. So, look, you guys can't just say no.
when it comes to planning and zoning issues and engineering issues. You have to have reasons or otherwise you get challenged in court. In this case, the court you'll get challenged in is in Lansing. It's going to be the MPSC, and you have to be ready. And so we've done a ton of work between the Public Works Director, the attorney, and others to make sure we're ready. Because if you really want to protect those people along 19 Mile Road, and you do, you can't just pretend to be fighting for them. You actually have to fight for them. And that means spending some money and doing some other
What
proper
we're
things.
doing really is, what we are doing is we're searching for the truth.
Right.
We're trying to consider the evidence and weigh it in a fair context and accept all the evidence. And we certainly want them to be part of the process, particularly since this information that we're discussing now has not really been a matter of discussion with them present before us. We also, of course, and they know this, have now discovered that back in 2021, well before they changed the route and went to 19 Mile, had actually tried, in conjunction with the hospital, to convince the community college to accept the same route on Dalcoma that you're referring to, that they're now, that they have claimed doesn't work.
Right.
And
And to the credit of Ms. Meltzer, she's the one who submitted that FOIA to obtain that information that actually showed us that even though they were saying that 19 Mile Road was the only route that could possibly work, they were actually advocating for and pushing other public entities to accept the Dalcoma route. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the disagreement with that other public entity about they didn't want it there, none of us want high-powered lines around us, let's be honest, right? But you want the electricity, you just don't want the lines. They didn't want it there, so they chose this other route. They spent some dollars on engineering, they spent some time on it, so obviously it's best for them to just continue on the path they're on. But your job is to decide what's best for the community. And what's best for the community is to weigh each of these arguments
Well,
they've made and decide if they make sense.
The most material point on that was that the rendering that they presented to try to convince the community college, and by the way, the rendering is a drawing, showed the power lines on poles that were very similar to what they were proposing to you, what they are proposing to use on 19 Mile. And what they had told us prior to that was that they could not use the poles, that because of the flight path, they would have to have a buried section instead of the poles, and that made the installation financially difficult to the point where it just wasn't a proper route. When in reality, they had presented a rendering with all the same issues of the helicopter and so on that showed the poles above ground. And of course, they had not explained to us that they had done that, and we only found out when we submitted the FOIA.
Okay, so we now have informed ITC of our findings. I know I did so verbally. They then requested a meeting.
Right.
I don't know what they're going to be saying in their meeting, but in that meeting, which I've invited Mr. Kress to, in spite of prematurely placing this on the agenda tonight, that we have a responsibility to hear them out on the advice of our counsel and then make a decision as to putting this up on the agenda for the board's consideration.
These investigations are iterative, which means they make an argument. You and your experts challenge it, which we now have. They come back and tell you why you're wrong. And you might be prepared for that. You might be wrong. They might have legitimate arguments to come back with. You have to go through that iterative process. If you just truncate it either at the beginning by saying, we're not going to investigate, the answer is no, then you're going to lose in Lansing. If you go partway through where they make their arguments and you reject them and then you don't hear their comeback, you're also showing that you're not being deliberate and really truly considering the issue. You have to consider it, and you have to be willing to admit that you're wrong if you are wrong. I think you're right. But you have to go through the process. And it's a delicate thing, and you have to go through the process. And sometimes that's a pain in the butt, and you want to get it done, and I get it. But let's do it right. Whatever the answer is, you want it to stick. Whatever the answer is, you need it to be right and stick.
Taking responsible action.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Kress.
Through the chair to Mr. Dolan, our ordinance,
Yes, sir.
I remember at the end of the ordinance, it had to say something about harmonious and not affect and not have a detrimental effect on
Yeah, I think
On
you're
properties.
paraphrasing some of the provisions out of the ordinance refers to using the same standards as are used for special land use. And those standards actually come from the a state statute and then our ordinance also. So there's some familiarity that in those contexts where those have been used. And you're right, harmonious in relationship to other surrounding uses would be one of them.
So our ordinance alone, I think, is the basis for my motion. And my motion is to deny the 85.27 acre special land use site development plan approval for the ITC Shrine Interconnection Project along 19 Mile Road.
Okay, before that gets seconded, I understand your motion, but my recommendation would be that certainly now tonight, we've made it very clear, we've been very forthcoming, we've indicated where we think the evidence stands at this point. I think it would behoove us to postpone making any kind of motion and send a letter directly to ITC. And if so, you could send it to others as well, that we are resuming the hearing at a future board meeting so that there's no opportunity to argue that there was insufficient notification or insufficient understanding of where we are at this point. We want to resume the hearing at a specific date. So my suggestion would be, instead of making a determination, let's pass a motion that we will and resume the hearing at a specific time and place, and we will send it directly to the persons who've been here previously acting on their behalf, which was their general counsel, their outside law firm, and would be probably the best recipients since they were the ones who were speaking on behalf of them.
Okay.
Would you agree that the hospital should also be notified, given the fact that they were here speaking on those issues as well?
Well, they're members of the public. I mean, we would give notice to the interested parties. If you want, we're obviously at this meeting doing it in a public way. We could send additional notices by mail to them that we're resuming the proceedings.
Mr. Kress, what's your pleasure? Do you want to?
I'm not gonna withdraw my motion, see if I get a second and see
Is
what
there
the
support for the
pleasure.
motion? Going once? Going twice? Motion dies for lack of support. Trustee Matuzik.
ITC and the hospital came to us in December and sort of sprung this on us. And we looked at it, and we generally have all agreed that this is not aesthetically pleasing. It puts a high-tension power line 40 feet from somebody's bedroom. This is not a good plan. But we have not sat around doing nothing for 3 months, as Mr. Deputy Supervisor has pointed out. We've been researching. We've been digging up facts and figures. We've been trying to put together a case. If we could get them to move this power line to the Delcoma route, that benefits everybody. It doesn't affect residents, and the hospital gets its power. I mean, remember, we're doing this because the hospital doesn't have enough power to operate. They're operating on generators. We really need, they're the biggest employer in this township. They provide incredible service to all of us who get sick and ill and have to go to the hospital. I want the hospital to have power. I don't want those power lines to run down 19 Mile. And if we can put enough pressure on ITC and the hospital, and in turn the community college, which I'm not going to go into that, but they're the stumbling block here. They need to be better neighbors. We could have enough power and not affect the residents. So I would move that we postpone, that we reopen the public hearing at the next board meeting and notify the parties involved.
That's been moved. Is there support for the
That
motion?
would be the next regular board meeting.
The next regular board meeting.
I support.
Okay, that's been moved by trustee Matuzek, supported by trustee King. Any further discussion? Trustee Wade?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, so when we leave tonight, we will put it on the next board meeting.
Correct.
The hospital, the college, ITC, they'll all be notified, although it is a public meeting, I understand that, but we'll make sure they're notified so they have ample opportunity to come here and be represented and kind of kill one of their arguments down the road, as Mr. O'Leary identified could happen if they weren't here.
Correct.
Is
In other words, we
is
don't
that-
want to weaken our case by not providing proper notice.
Yeah, is that a fair summary?
I believe that, Mr. Dolan, would you concur? I would.
Yes, I think it's in our best interest to act consistent with the motion that's made.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion from the board? Members of the public, Mr. Buchel.
I am very happy to hear that the township has been investigating this and coming up with obvious arguments. And there again, the residents of all those townhouses that have been in court, and especially, the ones that they've had to chip in, I would hope all of this information is being passed to them right now. I don't think they should have to wait. I mean, when you have something positive that their attorneys can use to protect their homes and actually protect all of us, because once this goes through, it's going to really garbageize a certain part of the township that is right now a beautiful part of the township. And so, I salute the fact that the township has been working on this and finding information. I would hope, and you might not be able to say it right now, I just hope that you all have been passing on this information to the responsible people that are there and to save their law. The amount of money that they have had to spend on lawsuits is ridiculous. And so that's all I would say. I salute the fact that you did it, but please let the residents know. Thank you.
I can tell you that a letter has gone out to the residents, and the two new developments, they're kind of learning tonight. But we'll be sending out more information as we go. Roll call, please.
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
No.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Clerk Melcher, yes. Motion passes.
Okay. That brings us to item number 8, recommendation to amend the budget and approve purchase of picnic tables and benches for Prince Drury Park.
Dear Honorable Board of Trustees, the Prince Drury Committee is extremely excited for the improvements recently made at Prince Drury Park. At our last meeting, the committee met with the Director of Public Services, Mary Bednar, and discussed purchasing new metal picnic tables for under the park pavilions, as well as benches for along the new pathway. Ms. Bednar stated that new picnic tables were planned in the fiscal year 2026 and 27 budget for township parks, so it may make sense to request purchasing Prince Drury tables this year. The pavilions will be upgraded with metal roofs this year, and it will be beneficial to have all the improvements completed within the same year. The benches will be a welcomed addition to the newly constructed pathway, so walkers and other park visitors can rest as needed, enjoying nature or watching over their children playing. In order to move ahead with these purchases, a budget amendment of $15,000 would be required. As such, the Prince Drury Committee and the Department of Public Services is requesting the Township Board consider amending the fiscal year 25-26 budget year in the amount of $15,000 for the Department of Public Services to purchase new metal picnic tables and benches. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Sincerely, Ionia Means, co-chair for the Prince Drury Park, and Julie Matuzak, trustee and co-chair also for Prince Drury Park Committee.
Trustee Matuzak.
Thank you very much. Prince Drury Park is one of the few parks we have in the southern part of the township. It's off of Quinn Road. It is an area that frankly suffered quite a bit of neglect over the years. And we have made some major improvements, and we're right sort of at the end of making this a really great park. We were able, through a donation of services and dirt, to regrade the fields. We've took down the rickety baseball structures. We painted a mural on the basketball court. We refurbished the horseshoe pits. We added the half-mile walking path around the pavilion. We've upgraded the barbecue pits and put in a container for the hot coals. We've done a lot in this park, and we're right at the very end. This, starting in May, the first week in May, we are installing 2 new playgrounds with upgraded equipment and expanded size, and that the community is very much looking forward to that happening. As the letter indicated, we've redone the pavilion roofs to stop the leakage. Adding the benches is it's been on the list of things people would like for a while now. And the picnic tables were scheduled to be redone next year, but it would be really great if we could finish up this park. I mean, there's still a few more things we want to do, but if we could finish up this park by the picnic tables. So I am hoping people will vote for this. We have a Prince Drury Park on Wednesday. I would love to be able to report this. So I would make the motion to amend the budget for $15,000 from the Department of Public Service to install benches and picnic tables.
I'll second that.
I think I heard Ms. Meltzer first. So
Okay, it doesn't matter, whoever made it.
I have to try to gauge that, but any further discussion?
I just, Chair,
Yeah.
I'll just add that, this would really help accentuate the work that's been done previously, and I think it would just be a great addition to be able to go into this spring, summer year with this being in place, and appreciate everyone's strong consideration against this. That area for a while has been neglected, and we need to, finish this out and finish the job.
Further discussion from board members?
I'd just like to thank the committee for what they did. That park is heavily used in the summer. I've driven by there many times, and it's well-used, and I'm sure that the amenities will do well there, so thank you.
Okay. All right. Public participation. Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Clerk Meltzer, yes. Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. And then that brings us to item number 9 was deleted. Item number 10, committee recommendation for allocation of opioid settlement funds.
Madam Clerk, if you want to save your breath.
I do, thank you. Yes, go for it.
A lot of you weren't around, I think 5 of you weren't around when the board initially approved this litigation. So we want to just take 5 minutes to remind you what we did and why we did it. And then going to tell you, let you meet the people that we're recommending that you spend some money on so that they can answer your questions. So let me go through it real quick, and if I can get this thing to work. I guess it's sort of working. I don't know what that other thing is up there.
Oh, let me manage that. I'll
Yeah, I
take
don't
care
like
of that
looking
for
at
you.
myself.
Just one
I got
moment.
to get back to the gym.
Okay, there you go.
All right. So about a year ago, you guys formed a committee, and the board members were Kim, Julie, and Shannon. Before that, it was Tammy Patton, before she left. But Shannon took over for her. The 2 chiefs joined us, Mary Hine, our finance director, myself, Paul Brower, who's now retired, and legal counsel joined us in this committee to investigate what we're allowed to spend opioid settlement money on, and where do we want to spend it? Where do we want to recommend to you that you consider spending it? So, we spent a little time on this, and for the public's sake, opioids they're painkillers of all kinds, high potency, which makes them great for medical purposes. It also, unfortunately, makes them great for illicit purposes, and a lot of people get hooked and use them for recreational drugs, and it becomes a real problem, and has been a crisis for our community and for the nation. And that's because of irresponsible practices by corporate America, in all honesty. Who would think that when you mix, money and drugs, that it'll turn out bad for you. But it does, because people don't always pursue the best interests of their patients when money's on the line. And that's what happened in this case. You might see drugs you've used in the last couple of years up here. Hopefully no one's used heroin, but you could make a case for a lot of the other ones, for sore knees, sore shoulders, whatever your doctors put you through. There's a difference between natural opiates and synthetic and semi-synthetic opioids, but the public and I will be using them interchangeably just because they kind of accomplish the same thing. But there's a ton of drugs that have been on the market that are used to treat you, and very well, and they do a good job of controlling your pain when used right. But you might remember 10 years ago when you got these drugs after a surgery or something, you shake your bottle. You had a heck of a lot of pills in there, didn't you? And now they hand you a few until you break them in half, because they've learned the consequence of over-distributing these things. And the addiction issue is obviously one of them. They're highly addictive. They cause respiratory failure if inappropriately used, overdose, and death. And what's not listed there is the human factor in terms of crime and otherwise destroyed lives, the crazy things people will do to get their hands on opioids when they can't get them the old-fashioned way through their doctor. We talk about, and I could tell you from my past experience in public life, young ladies who you would never think would be involved in the sex trade, getting involved in the sex trade, young jocks who you'd think, hey, that's a great kid, all-star kid, hurts his knee, gets on the opioids, gets hooked, next thing you know, he's doing petty crimes to get money. That's the crisis that is on top of the health crisis, and it affects all of us. Opioid deaths since the late 90s have gone up about 10 times per year versus where they were in the mid-90s. Kind of more on the men's side than on the ladies' side. The men are the top line going across the bar graphs. But the deaths have increased 10 times over or more since the late 90s. And, there were actually waves of the deaths, which really tells a story. It started out being deaths associated with prescription opioids. And this is color coordinated and I'm colorblind, so this is really not helpful to me. But for those of you who are not colorblind, what this chart tells you is it starts out with deaths caused by opioids. Then somewhere around 2010 or so, the deaths from heroin start going up. Why? Because that star athlete, that young college girl who hurts herself in track and was on medically given opioids, can't afford them anymore. She's run out of her opioids that the doctor will allow. She can't afford to go buy them from her friends, which a lot of people were doing. So she goes to the street for cheaper drugs, heroin being the one. So heroin deaths started increasing as a result of this change in the way people did things. And then after that, the synthetic ones, fentanyl, you hear that term a lot, fentanyl, a legitimate drug, but it's 50 to 100 times more powerful than morphine. So, people start dying from it because they're mixing it with the other drugs, and, quality control's not so good in the drug trade when it's not the pharmacies, believe it or not, and people are dying. So these deaths came in waves. Everybody likes to stigmatize addicts, okay, or alcoholics, or anyone with a problem. We all have problems, right? 29% of people say they or a family member have had an opioid addiction. 29%. And it's everybody. It's not just the inner city kids. It's the rural kids. Judge LeDuc up there in Romeo used to tell me, you have no idea how many kids I have coming before me right now with opioid problems. 42% of people in rural areas say they know someone in their family has had an opioid problem. It's a big deal. If you look at races, 33% are white. That's more than the black and Hispanic population. 33% of the people have someone in their family who've had an opioid addiction. So the stigma, and everybody likes to try to say, well, it's somebody else. It's not me. No, it's us. It's everybody. So years ago, you guys had the foresight to join a lawsuit, a class action lawsuit, nationwide. Michigan participated, Clinton Township participated. I don't think all states participated, and I know all towns didn't participate. They started suing producers, distributors, retailers, including pharmacies, Kroger, that kind of thing, And they even picked off McKinsey because they were a consultant that advised one of the parties. Those cases are largely settled on the left. You still have some open ones, there's some bankruptcy, a lot of bankruptcies that have occurred, and I think in part tied to this issue. I don't know where they'll go if you get anything out of that, but the ones on the left have pretty well been settled. The lawyers that you got involved with are saying that they're looking for other people to sue, because they're lawyers and they're looking for people to sue, that's what they do. But they're looking for other pockets of business that may have benefited from the irresponsible and excessive distribution of these drugs. Because that's the heart of it, right? Irresponsible and excessive distribution. So the settlement on most of the cases, they're all different, unfortunately. It's not like you have one big settlement. You can read one document. You got a zillion documents and they're all 300 pages long. Our share typically is 0.65% of what Michigan gets. Depending on the contract or the settlement, the payment is either a one-timer or it might even get paid over 15 years. There's incentives built into these contracts where some of the payments could be deferred, some of them could be accelerated, some of them could be eliminated based on certain bonuses or activity that they do. And then the bankruptcies complicate matters. So the long and short is, if you're trying to predict what you're going to get next year, the year after, good luck. We've had a lot of meetings about it and we're struggling and it's hard. But what we do know is that so far, we've received $1.769 million in settlement. And no, I would never put my hand on a Bible over this, but I think we'll get 2 to 3 times that before it's over, you know, all said and done. But with all those changes and incentives and everything, who knows? You don't know. So right now, we got 1.7. And it's important to keep that number in mind because I would certainly never advise you to spend more money than you have in the bank because you don't know when or where it's going to come tomorrow, right? So I don't even think about tomorrow, and I would advise you to do the same. That 1.7 million includes the first of roughly 8 payments we're going to get on the special circumstances. You may recall you advised us to go ahead, and legal counsel advised us to go ahead and file for special circumstances because as Clinton Township, guess what? We got 2 hospitals in the area. We got all kinds of county facilities that deal with drugs. We got the jail and everything in the area. So, you know, all the health organizations and everything. So we have a lot of people who come here with their issues because we have the facilities for it. So there's a greater burden on our community in terms of those people being here, police, fire, you know, and crime, unfortunately. So we asked for additional money. We got $185,000 a year for 8 years. So what can we use the money for? Like I said, each settlement's different.
Before we go into that, there's strings attached to these dollars, is that correct?
Yes.
So, kind of, can you briefly?
Yep, that's what, in effect.
Oh, okay.
In effect, I hate to say it this way because it makes me sound so bitter, but I am actually kind of bitter about it. You know, when you sue somebody and you get an award, it's not often that they say, but I'm going to tell you what you can use the award money for. And guess what? They're telling us what we can use the award money for. That's part of the settlement. And I find it so inappropriate. You're basically taking over the corporate responsibility that any corporate executive has when they deal with the drug industry and the health industry. To take over their responsibility to educate and treat problems and so on. That's usually a corporate responsibility. And they're using the settlement to offload that to all the communities that sued them. My view, jaundice die. But, so how can we spend the money? Each settlement's different. Generally speaking, they follow the Exhibit E of the major settlements, which tells you all the things you can spend money on in general categories. There's 4 key areas. Treatment. So think about things like recovery coaches that help them understand, you know, they're there to listen to them. They give them guidance on where to go for inpatient treatment. They do all that kind of stuff. You know, how do you get transportation? All that. People who can kind of say, hey, I've been there, I've done it, I've gone through it. That's treatment. And you got education. You have all these coalitions you see that help educate kids, help educate doctors, because doctors need education too. Help educate parents about and the elderly, because you know a lot of the victims of this were people my age, right? You go for surgeries all the time, and it's folks like us. No one ever thinks of us in a drug crisis, but it's true. So there's that whole education component. Harm reduction. Some have resorted to giving out needles because if people use unclean needles, they can get other diseases, right? So by distributing needles, it's helpful to them not to have to deal with the dirty needles. And then there's recovery and mitigation. There's everything from housing to finding jobs and replacing income and all that. That's a use that is in the allowable uses. So we have to spend in those 4 key areas, and there's 1,000 items under those 4 key areas, right? You are allowed to spend, depending on the settlement, 0 to 15% on non-qualifying expenses. But good luck getting a great interpretation of what that is, because there's some debate as to whether the local legal fees are part of that or not, get deducted from that, if we already spent it and all that. So we're still trying to navigate all that. But you're allowed 0 to 15%, depending on the settlement, on non-qualifying. You have to report every 6 months if you've spent anything on non-qualifying expenses. So they want to know that you're doing their job for them. So the committee that you established sat down and last year, and they gave you guys the guiding principles. You guys seemed okay with them at the time. Invest in impactful ways. Let's not just throw the money out there and hope, right? Let's think about it and come up with a way to impact the problem. Invest in local families. Try to keep the money locally. Don't recreate the wheel if you don't have to. Sometimes you're tempted to say, hey, why don't we hire this, and why don't we bring someone in-house to do that? Man, there's some great resources out there. We're in some great relationships already. Let's lever those relationships and not recreate the wheel. Team up to spread dollars when you can with other towns. Look for measurable results. Whoever we share our money with should be able to report back to us on a periodic basis and say what they spent it on and what the statistics are, so we know the money's being put to good use, right? Be equitable in the distribution. I guess, it's a hard one to live up to, but whether it's age, you don't want to spend it all on one age group versus another. You don't want to spend it on one race versus another, one geography in the town versus another. You want to make sure whatever you're spending it on is available to Clinton Township residents, period, whoever they are. And then transparency, which is what tonight's about, was just saying, hey, this is what we're going to spend it on, so the public knows. We get calls from reporters every 2 months or so asking us what we're spending our money on, and because they want to know, and you should be transparent about it. But the black bolded thing on the right there is telling you, we, the committee, are advising you, don't spend money that you don't have. So we've collected 1.7 million. We might get another 1.7. Let's not contract that out, because we don't know what's coming and we don't know when it's coming. We'll deal with it later. The committee felt strongly that of the 4 areas that we're allowed to spend money on, that we should stick to treatment and education and prevention, as opposed to getting into harm reduction. We thought it would be difficult for this board to advocate for some of those policies. And we thought getting into the whole mitigation and helping people with job loss and all that is a little tougher too. So we said, let's stick to getting ahead of the problem. Let's stick to educating the public about it and treating our residents who are in this condition today. That's where we wanted to spend most of our money. You can choose otherwise, but that's just our advice to you. We did poll our peers, and like all of us, we're all waiting, like gunmen waiting to draw, waiting to see what the other guy's doing, right? And over the last few months, you're starting to see people make some decisions. So there's a bunch up there that are still evaluating it. Some have worked with Face Addiction Now. Some have worked with Hope Not Handcuffs, which is Face Addiction Now, and a bunch of local governments. Chesterfield spent it on Comet Drug Task Force and MedStar Outreach. So MedStar is doing something similar to what we're doing, which is, to get a case where somebody's clearly in a drug situation that their responders are going to, and they have MedStar people call them, counsel them, try to get them into the programs, that sort of thing. New Baltimore is looking at a Narcan dispenser. They haven't decided that yet, but they're considering it. Macomb County put all their money into the jail because they're going to have an intake center with an assessment center. And a lot of these people do get in touch with the jail. And so that's a way of identifying them and trying to treat them and all that. So, but a lot of them are still evaluating. Partners interviewed, and they're here today. CARE Southeastern Michigan, because we already have an existing relationship with them. Again, we're not trying to recreate the wheel. We do a lot with them already with our police department, and they're a good partner, so they're an obvious choice on spending some money to help address this problem. The district court is an obvious choice. We are one of 3 partners in that. We're the majority partner. We spend the most money of the 3 towns, us, Mount Clemens, and Harrison. And they have a drug court. And again, it's a great thing. People get into trouble with the court, they're there, they have a choice. They can go through the normal court process, face some jail time, or they can go through the drug court, show that they're getting off the stuff, that they're pulling their life together, they're living right, and over a period of time, their life can be clean again with our help without going to jail and having all the disruption to their family and all that goes with it, right? It's a great program. Again, an existing partner. We're already partners with them. We did reach out to McCrest. We're not really partners with them, but we thought with the homeless situation, sometimes people are homeless for a reason. They weren't interested in submitting an application at this time. That may change in the future. It may just be a mission thing. They don't think it's their mission. That's fine. Maybe in the future we'll see something. And then Face Addiction Now, which you may know as Families Against Narcotics, their old name. We reached out to them halfway through the process when McCrest didn't apply. We're in I guess we're in hope, not handcuffs with them, in that if somebody calls our police station and says, hey, I'm an addict and I need help, they will send someone over and they will meet with that person at our police station and try to get them into the programs and to get them clean. So we are involved with them from that standpoint. We don't have more the contractual relationship that we're talking about here, so they're not an existing partner in that way, but we do have hope, not handcuffs with them, so there's somebody that you could look to. But we were looking to people that we're in a relationship with as our primary, because you don't want to recreate the wheel, you want to spend this money wisely. I've got a quick slide for each one of the organizations and then some of the things that might surprise you. But I want to ask for each slide the appropriate organization to come up and just introduce themselves and let themselves be available for your questions. Then I'll move on to the next slide where you can hear the next group. So if you get your questions answered live, right? So the CARE proposal is for $258,000 a year over a 3-year period. We limited all these proposals to 3 years because we thought we don't know where the money's coming from after that, so we want to be sure, right? Theirs was kind of multiple capacities. They talk about coaching for people that they already do the coaching for some people, but there's some people that aren't covered by the county programs and can't get that kind of help, the peer recovery coaching and that sort of thing, because they're not covered by the programs, and they're looking to fill that gap for us. They already do the other stuff, so they're already a good partner. And then they wanted to invest in the Clintondale Coalition. Again, information, teaching people about this stuff. They already exist, but there's a life cycle that go with these coalitions where you have to get them up and running and self-sufficient where they're gathering their own money so that they can be successful, and they're not quite there yet. So you help them build that whole thing, and that's their proposal on that. Doing PSAs and environmental design, how do you change the behavior of your community, right? Drug take-back events and all that kind of stuff. And otherwise, just promote the programs and the services. So their proposal, $258 a year, and the committee was very strongly in support of it. I don't know if you have any questions for Susan or Dominique. You've met them before because you just approved the social worker contract with them.
If they have anything they want to add,
No, we just want to say thank you for the opportunity. We spent a lot of time evaluating what we thought were ways to enhance what services were already in the community and to expand them and to use these dollars that typically a lot of the money that comes in for substance use is very restricted on what you could do. And this was an opportunity to really try to do something creative that could create long-term sustainability for the community that isn't necessarily tied to receiving these dollars. So that was the plan that we proposed, and we're very excited to have this opportunity.
Dan?
Okay. So that's CARE, and they'll hang out in case...
Yeah, ladies, you might want to stay in case the board has questions. Yeah.
Things will come up. Next, we had the court. The court proposed a very aggressive and wonderful proposal. I'm still kind of smarting about the dog we didn't approve, but But we focus on a few things because, one of the things we thought is keep everybody in their lane that they're good at, right? And so, testing is something they do as part of their protocol, but they needed to expand their testing to test for more things, including fentanyl. It's not tested in the normal panel. So that's part of what they've asked for. A peer recovery coach to help with all that stuff about, hey, I've been there, here's all the places you can go for this and that, and here's some support materials and all that kind of stuff. Here's how you get transportation. Somebody has to be there to coach these people, right? So they're asking for some help with that. Social events, monthly social events. Hey, I'm a recovering alcoholic. One of the hardest things you do in life is you have to figure out how to have fun without going to the same places your friends go to all the time, right? And you have to have different kind of people. And that's one of the programs they're looking to do, is get their people out doing things that are different, that don't involve other people with the same problem they had, right? Makes total sense. And then transportation. A lot of these people, they've lost their license, or they've lost their jobs, they've lost their car because they can't afford it anymore. They need to get to their court dates, they need to get to their sober events, they need to get to their counseling, and they can't. And so some of this money would go towards bus passes, Uber cards, and other things to get them where they need to go. Their proposal for all those things, and they had a lot more. Some of the things that they wanted to do, we just felt would be better done elsewhere. Other things, there was problems, frankly, with the building. We own the building, but that the court uses, well, we bonded for it. That bond has conditions, and we couldn't use the building for certain things under that bond, so we had to kind of squeeze some of those things off the list. So, but still, this is great stuff that they're proposing. It's $114,000 a year, 3 years, $344,000 is what they're looking for. And if we have Kara here and Judge Fuca, in case you want to ask them any questions.
A lot shorter than Dan. And I just want to say also, thank you for the opportunity to submit the proposal. And frankly, Kara Hartman, who's our specialty court director, put in numerous hours, and it was, painstaking endeavor, which the whole community needs to know how lucky and blessed we are to have Kara Hartman, because she puts 110% into her job, which is helping people in this community in recovery. And not every community can say they have an employee as spectacular as she is. And I want to say that we do get grant money, as most of you well know, to run our treatment court programs. But as Susan indicated, there's limitations on what we can use the grant dollars for. So there's all of these extra items that would just not only help the treatment court programs, but we were also looking to expand the services to people who are not eligible for the treatment court programs. We can only put in so many people because the grant funds only fund so many people. It costs about $10,000 to put one person through that program. And there's not a limitless amount of money for that. So the money that we were asking for would be to expand to other people who are not in the treatment court, but also to offer more services to those people who are in the treatment courts, already trying to, make the change, get their life turned around. And there's the research shows that these programs work. The testing is so important because it keeps people accountable, and numerous people have said, as much as they hate the testing, that's what they needed to be held accountable. If they get the urge to use, they know they got to test. It just might be one more reason not to pick up whatever it is they were abusing. The peer recovery coach services that's invaluable. For people to come in and be able to sit with somebody who has made it through to the other side. And I wish we could offer that to every single probationer that we have, because it's that important. So we were super happy to get some extra funding for that. The pro-social events, as Dan's, I'm kind of reiterating what Dan said, and I'm so grateful that you all have such a great grasp on this issue. It means the world to us that you've taken so much time to get educated about it. But the pro-social events, you know, I can tell people you could make it through this program because you're on probation, and you know if you screw up, there's a good chance I'm going to put you in jail. But what we're really looking for is what you do when you get out of the program, and whether or not you're going to succeed after you get out of the program when the accountability is gone is how you've managed to find a new lifestyle, new things that you can do that don't revolve around people who are using drugs and that sort of thing. So the pro-social activities are really important, and there's just not a lot of funding for that with the grants. And transportation, as Dan indicated, is a huge barrier. So we never want to have to turn people down for treatment, or to get the testing, or to even come to court because they lack the ability to get there, which is so true. Many people are in a place where they no longer have a license, or they have a license and they no longer have a vehicle. So we appreciate everything that the committee did, and we are, super grateful. Should you award us this money, we'll do our very best to, help the people in this community. And again, thank you, and of course, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have as well.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Ms. Hartman. Can we guys have you come towards the front? I mean, we'll just get through all of the presentations, and then if the board has questions, they can direct it who they want to.
Okay, that's the court. One of the proposals was a school liaison. Now, I think I told you guys when this happened, those of you that were here, but we had a request from Chippewa Valley to add a school liaison officer. And for those of you who haven't done it, we've done it several times now, and it has a great benefit. A police officer in the school that the kids can learn to relate to, does 1,000 good things for the community, including building a relationship between cop and resident as they get older. But also it gives the kids someone to go to when they see something that isn't right. The cop's there to deal with it. The cop can help deal with all these issues when they see somebody who's in a troublous situation. So it's good for us from the standpoint of this, and we feel it fits very well into the prevention angle of the settlement. Chippewa approached us maybe a year ago to ask for this additional resource officer. And typically they pay half, we pay half, but we didn't have the money for our half. You guys know what's going on in the police fund. So this gives us the opportunity to fund our half so that we can do this deal with them. Now, you're still going to have trouble because resources are an issue. Getting the right cop is an issue, but that's a bridge we can cross if you approve the money. Get the money first, we'll figure out the resource. But the school was very interested in doing this. The cost, I think in the memo I said 276. If you round it up, because we have collective bargaining changes and stuff, it's probably closer to 300 grand over the 3 years, but for our share. Ron is here from the school, as is our 8th board member, Ken Pearl. And they can answer any questions you have on that.
Good evening. We have a partnership right now with Clinton Township, as we do with Macomb Township. And this police resource officers work very well. In Chippewa Valley, we have Clinton Township, we share 4 elementary schools, 2 middle school, high school, 9th grade center, and then Mohegan High School. It's a lot of students. And right now, we have 2 resource officers. One covers high school, 9th grade center. The other covers the rest. That's a lot of students, thousands of students, hundreds and hundreds of staff. So I think Officer Decker can explain what the officer does. Or Ron, do you still have a overall?
No, Dave can speak to his job duties.
Thanks for the opportunity to present. I'm Detective Decker. I'm the school liaison officer up at Chippewa High School. I'm responsible for Chippewa High School, the 9th grade center in Mohegan. We do a lot of awareness with different classrooms, presenting different slideshows for prevention. It's not just a crime aspect of it. I'm not there just to enforce laws, more of a police presence. I like to build a mentorship with a lot of the kids, many as I can. Like I said, just be a presence in the school, see something, say something, familiar face, mentor a lot of them. Some of them come to me with different abuse issues, situations going on at home. So, like I said, just a lot of drug awareness that we do, specifically in the ninth grade center. Age-appropriate stuff. My partner does do stuff in the middle school level, too, in regards to that.
So, hi, I'm Ron Roberts, Superintendent of Chippewa Valley Schools, and I just want to add a little bit to this that I think is really important that sometimes gets overlooked. I think it's well documented that our kids are known as the anxious generation. And that's not always noticed right away by people, but I can tell you when something happens in a school or school system around the country, that makes a real difference. It's very negative regarding what happens in our school district because of that. And that's because of the anxiety that kids feel regarding safety and security. So people like Dave, who is an absolutely wonderful police, or we call them SROs now, and John Cook is our other one, are absolutely stellar individuals who, as Dave described, they provide some one-on-one things to our students, which are very important, but there also is just their presence in a school helps with mental health. And that really, when you think about drug use and its relationship to mental health, that's key. And our kids feeling safe and secure is important. And that's sort of something that kind of is underlying, that you don't notice every day. So we're really proud of our relationship with Clinton Township. You've been very generous over the years with us, and I think it really has made a difference. Every school district tries the best they can to serve our kids in this capacity and our parents. And when I listen to others speak, I am so proud of being a superintendent in the Chippewa Valley area because of what this township does for our schools in order to meet the needs of our kids, which I think all of these things put together help our kids remain drug-free, which is really our goal. We want kids to leave us in a good state of mind, ready for that next step in their life. So we're really excited about the opportunity that is presented here this evening from you, and we hope everything goes well. So thank you.
Just to add for the record that the Board of Education, myself as president, can testify that we have authorized our share of whatever the costs are for this additional officer. So we hope you'll agree that it's needed. Thank you.
Ken?
And again, as we talk about more money coming and you start thinking ahead to where you might spend it, you already have some liaison officers out there, and there may be reason to use some of the money for those existing ones, or you may want to expand the program into other schools. So it's just one of the many things to think about for the next round, which we'll get to in a second. Okay, the next one is the not Family Against Narcotics, it's Face Addiction Now proposal. And the judge is here to talk to us about this, but one of the things that we were worried about, you think about the addicted person all the time, but the real issue that a lot of people don't think about is the family, right? So we thought, let's spend some money on family coaching. Face Addiction Now, that was one of their many proposals, and like the court, they put forth a ton of proposals, and they were very aggressive, and it was very good to see. With them, they came, because we invited them late to the game, they came late to the game, and they're not really a contractual partner in the same way that the others are, so it wasn't really, it was a little bit more of starting fresh, recreating the wheels. So the team thought, well, we've got this need, we got this family coaching need, let's reach out to FAN on this, let them do their thing, see how the money flows in the future, see how the relationship flows in the future, and then we'll make a call on whether or not to expand into some of the other areas that they talked about. So it's kind of a, get to know you kind of thing, but I don't want you thinking, though, that we don't know them to some extent. I mean, they're in our community. We do have the Hope Not Handcuffs program that we're one of many communities who participate in that. So I want you to know they are out there. They are a partner in that way. But this is a need we thought was immediate. And as you see more money free up, you may see us come back to you and say, hey, there's these other 3 or 4 things we want to pick out of their proposal to come forward with. But the judge is here if you'd like to.
Judge Davis?
I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to present the proposal as well. We've enjoyed a long relationship with Clinton Township in many different capacities. Our family coaching program is pretty unique throughout the state of Michigan. We realize that addiction is a family disease, and if we don't also provide help for the family, that oftentimes, I know in drug court, we would see that people were doing well as soon as they would return to the family because the family wasn't educated, they would relapse back into using again, and so we decided that we wanted to treat the whole family. We also place a lot of people into treatment in Clinton Township through our Hope Not Handcuffed program. It used to be that people walked into the police department, the program got so robust, we work with 185 police departments in the state of Michigan doing that program. Just to show you the growth, last year at this time we were fielding about 700 calls a month. We are fielding over 5,000 calls a month right now, and those are from varying communities. So we continue to grow, and every bit of money that we can get helps us provide services. Obviously, this money will be used to service people in Clinton Township. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge.
So I mentioned to you that you can use some money for non-approved uses, and we're still struggling with that. We're very hesitant to pull the trigger on that, but we thought we would recommend to you that 5% of the money be allocated, you split it up between the police and fire department. It's not much money, it's 28 grand a year, to help defray some of their costs because they're going on these police runs, they're going on these fire runs. Quantifying it is not like you think. You think it should be easily done. It's not easily done. We've done pilots. It's very challenging. But we thought with the non-complying money, that no one can argue with us if we allocate a certain portion to our police department. And if in the future we can think of a better way to do it so that we can do it through complying money, we'll approach you on that. But right now, this is our best shot, and we figured, let's just defray some costs because they're incurring costs going to all these homes and stuff, doing what they have to do, firemen and police. So that's the proposal there. Not much, but when you look at it in total, like I said, we got $1.7 million that we got. Between the 5 different areas we're proposing to you, it's $1.5 million. Now, so we got a 200 grand head start on what the next round looks like. We'll see when the money comes in. Mary Hine, our finance director, is here tonight in case you had any questions, but she and I will watch the numbers to see what comes in when, and at a certain point in the future, we'd like to reconvene the committee and say, okay, now we've got a little bulk here. What do we want to do with this bulk of money? Again, only spending what we have, not betting on the come for the future. So the steps forward, if you approve these ideas tonight, would be 1, to give us a general authorization to spend the money as outlined. 2, direct legal counsel to work with the committee to come up with contracts with each of the organizations so that I think that settlement actually, I don't think we can just give it away. I think we have to have a contract, but even if we didn't, you'd want one.
Right.
Because you want to say, you're going to spend it as outlined in your proposal. You're going to spend the money wisely. You're going to make best efforts to report back to us your statistics and how you spent the money, so we know, that there's some transparency for our residents, right? So we'd ask you to approve council working with us to get that agreement between us and each of the organizations. And you can ask it to come back to you for approval if you want, or you can just let the supervisor sign it based on the committee. That's up to you guys. That's your bailiwick, not mine. And we'll monitor for the additional funds and probably reconvene in 6 to 9 months, depending on how fast the money comes. If the money doesn't come fast because people got deferrals or whatever the hell else was in that contract, it might be longer than that. It might be quicker than that if the money comes quickly. But let the committee figure that out, and we'll come back to you with round 2 of proposals. That's the proposal to you.
Awesome, Dan. Great job. Thank you. So I was part of this process when we initiated the suit, and then you realize you can't be involved in everything. And so I was glad that you picked up the baton and helped with this process. I think we also need to thank our law firm, Jack Dolan, and Linda, but they were the liaisons with these big MDA law firms that were nationwide, and all of those things, but he was working to strengthen our case and be our liaison, negotiating with the state, negotiating with, these are the lawyers. And then, of course, thank the committee for the work that they did, because these were really tough decisions.
They were.
And I know they were a long time coming, and I know that people agonized over them. And I appreciate everyone that brought forward these proposals. So with that, turn it over to the board for questions.
Mr. Superintendent.
Trustee Matusek.
Not so much a question, but I've been on this committee since it was formed. And I have to say, I am very proud of our work. People worked hard on this committee. People had to study all of the lawsuits and what we could spend the money on and what we couldn't, and then really deciding that we didn't want to just throw money at organizations. We wanted people to think of innovative things that they could do with this money. This is not the regular stuff that comes to all of these organizations. So what could they do that was interesting and creative and helpful and served Clinton Township and really pushed education and treatment? And I am proud of the work that we did. We invited people in, sometimes multiple times, 2 or 3 or 4 times. We had tons of questions. It was a good process, I think. And as I said, I'm very proud of our work. And I hope folks will vote for these recommendations. And then I hope we get a whole bunch of more money so we can get the service dog for the court, because that was an agonizing decision.
Yeah, I was very honored to be on this committee and to hear from all of your testimonies were very compelling. And in spite of the fact that I had a federal election I was dealing with, I kind of came in late to the process, but I was extremely grateful and am very grateful to all the work that all of you do. You're so committed to our community as a whole. People see it as an individual commitment. It is not. What you do matters to every single one of us in this community. So thank you so much for everything. I wish there was more money that we could distribute, because you definitely deserve it. My focus was mostly on prevention. I think of being in a situation where if you have an addiction, it's so hard. And I tell my children and my grandchildren, don't even try drugs, because you never know. This could be, first of all, you might not even know what you're getting. Secondly, you could become addicted the first time, even though there's those statements, oh no, you have to be using a drug for a long period of time. That is not the case. You can take it one time and become addicted. And once you're addicted, you're always an addict. So my focus was on prevention. I so appreciate our police officers that are in the schools working with the children, seeing firsthand and working as a mentor, and to show them there's other choices they can be making. And that is kind of where I heavily wanted to spend the money. If I could, I truthfully probably would have given it to all the schools because of the kids, because prevention to me would mean you all wouldn't have a job. That would be good. You would never have to have work on this field, but you do. And I'm certain that it's extremely challenging as well as rewarding. So thank you again. I do, well, we'll have more time to discuss it, but the distribution of money, if there's a little bit left, I wanted to, Dan O'Leary, can you step up for just 1 second? Or a couple seconds. The 1.532, we're at 17, or 1.7.
1769.
1769. Can we make, well, I'm going to just throw this out here. I'm looking at FAN, and I know we talked about the allocation of funding being a little sparse in this area. When you think about family coaching, that really is about prevention, because those families are integral to having, and being the most impacting of our children. So I'm wondering if there's a way for us to possibly bump up that 10,000 for every 3 years, so that we are at about, I would say, if we did another 150 to take it up to 150 total. I'm sorry, that's not the right, what did I have written down here? I forgot. 30,000, so there would be an additional 90,000 instead of 30,000. Yes, that's what it was.
90 instead of 30.
Yes, can we,
Question I'd ask Her Honor is, could you deploy it usefully for the family coaching?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We would work with the school systems to let them know what's available. We don't do that now because we don't have the money to do it. So if you give us the money, we will use it.
I think, Judge, we need you to step
Yeah.
up to the
Yeah. I'm
mic,
sorry,
so then everybody is hearing the
Yeah.
response to Clerk Meltzer's question.
Yeah, I was going to say that, if we had additional money for family counseling, we would be reaching out to organizations like schools, letting them know, foster care services, protective services, letting them know this is available, even the courts. But if you don't have the money, you don't advertise that you can grow a program without additional money. So there is a real need with it. I will tell you that we evaluate every program, and our family coaching program is probably one of the things that gets the highest marks because it really changes how families deal with this problem and makes them part of the solution instead of getting in the way of recovery. Okay.
does that give us enough cushion then to,
Yeah, you'd still
Still have-
have, if you raise that number to 90,000 or $100,000.
It's 1.62.
If that's what the board wanted, you'd still have another 100,000, 120,000 left, so you'd be fine.
I would like, well,
That's
after
not
we're
your
done.
motion
Yeah,
just
yeah,
yet.
yeah.
Trustee
let's-
King, because you
Mhm.
were on the committee, I wanted to make sure that,
Thank you.
you all had the opportunity to give your perceptions.
I mean, just really to piggyback off the great comments that have already been made, just want to say thank you to everyone who is doing all this hard work in our community. It really was what helped makes us thrive. So it's just very meaningful, and just thank you for all your efforts. And again, thank you to our law team for being able to help put us in a situation where we can help benefit our community. I mean, being the largest township in the state, we're dense, right? And we have a lot of needs, and this can certainly go up. It's not going to give us everything we need, but it's going to get us a long way to being able to help give the support that we need for our community. So just thank you to all involved, and learned a lot in the process, and it feels great to hopefully put something in front of our community that's going to be a direct benefit right away.
So, one thing that I failed to mention earlier is Fire Chief in the back, Captain Susala. These departments had to do a whole lot of work to try to build the case up and give that information over to our lawyers to say, hey, these are real costs to our community. And they're not just costs to us as a township or as police departments, but they're community costs. And they have to go out, first respond, out there every day. And so, and then on the back end, they had to do all this work trying to help us prove the case. So shout out to them as well. One question I do have, and that is sign of a good program, measurable. How are we measuring how these dollars are being put to use?
Sir, if you wouldn't mind, I think it would be good for you to hear from each of these groups what they might report out to us. Once a
Okay.
quarter, once every 6
If we
months.
can do that as quickly as possible. We took up way too much time with some of the other items. Judge, why don't you take the lead?
These are the,
We keep really robust data on every program that we do. We have several opiate settlement dollar funding sources throughout the state. We report out on all of them, depending on, obviously, what we're doing. If we're looking to reduce overdoses, then we report out on that. But we would definitely have numbers that we could make available to you, how many people successfully completed the program, the evaluations of those programs. We have everybody evaluate the program, and we are glad to do that as often as you would like us to do that. Okay. Thank you.
I'm responsible for over $1.5 million in grant money every year, so I am very used to reporting on statistics.
Very
and,
used to reporting requirements
federal
for
and
federal
state.
money,
So
right?
I think
Okay.
I'll have no problem with that. And I do quarterly reports. If you need anything other than that, I'm happy to do it. I do statistical ones. I do financial, everything, and we made sure that our people would be Clinton Township residents. We also brought up the fact maybe they could do, if the crime committed in Clinton Township, I don't know if we never got an answer for certain back on that, but we have more than enough cases that we could use this for.
Okay, thanks.
The metrics that we use, we would apply the same metrics that we're reporting out to the state and to the feds for that. So for example, for our coalition work, we have a list of activities that are all coded as to what our work plan would be, and then would reflect back how we're accessing that work plan. With the ultimate goal is when we presented to secure a drug-free communities grant that would create sustainability long-term is the long-term goal on that. For the individual work that we do, we follow our CARF accreditation guidelines, which is we always create goals around success, efficiency, effectiveness, and then access to services. So in our proposal, we had put together what we expect the outcomes to be, and then we also use a standardized tool to measure along what we're looking for the improvement with each things. It's not all or nothing. We're typically an organization that does not use utilization or numbers just to say we serve this many people. We think that's one part of the entire component of what we're measuring.
It's okay. No, we, as you know, in Chippewa Valley Schools, we're closely affiliated with our Coalition for Youth and Families. We probably have the most active coalition in the state of Michigan that's school-based, and they certainly, in their work, impact the entire community. So we would certainly use them to help us collect data. We also survey our kids through the state of Michigan on drug use and other behaviors, and it would be part of that. And one that we do have police reports that we could also use, so as part of it. So it would be a lot of survey data from us. Okay.
Well, I can certainly agree with that for the amount of emails I get from Charlene.
That's right.
Yeah.
So as part of the legal agreement, sir, we would probably put together some sort of wording about how each one will be reporting back a certain way. So based on this feedback, and we'll have a give and take with them over the next month or so to work that out. But we'll build that into the contract.
Okay.
Well, what I was
Clerk
going
Meltzer.
thank you. I was just going to ask is the timeline. So we should, if what we still have to do is have to sit down with them to discuss that, then we should report back to the board so the public knows when to expect that report so they can prepare to attend the meeting or watch it as well. So just transparency.
Yeah, maybe what we could do is put within the contracts the frequency of the report. Is it quarterly? Is it every semi-annually? That kind of thing. So we'll work that out with them and then report back to you what the agreement is. If we took the FAN number for the family counseling from 30,000 over 3 years, 10,000 a year, to 100,000 over 3 years, that brings your total to 1,602,712 that you would be approving, if you choose to do that.
Clerk Meltzer?
Yeah.
I know you were starting to make a motion. So I'm kind
Well,
of putting,
so what I guess what I wanted to, so it's 100. Yeah, that's right. I'm doing it. I'm losing 1 0 here. So.
All right, I'm going to refer to Trustee Matuzik for a motion. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, all right, so I would like, I'm so sorry. I want to make a motion to approve the allocation of funding as presented by the presenters, in addition to an additional 30,000 per year for a total of, is that right?
No.
That's where I need the total.
Just say 70,000 total added over the 3 years.
It's 90,000. I'm proposing 30,000 each year, so that's an additional.
30,000 instead of 10, so that it would be $90,000
Yeah.
over the
Yeah, for a total of 90,000.
90,000 additional?
No, in total. So right now, it's at 30,000 for the 3 years.
I was giving them an extra 10, but, you know.
Okay, well,
Just
we can
to
do
round
that.
it up.
I will tell you,
I
my
don't like-
concern
I don't like
about
lumpy
going too
numbers.
much was that we didn't have enough cushion. I want to make sure that's the case.
We're okay. I just discussed it with the finance director. We're okay.
Our budget
With-
process doesn't normally work like this.
90,000. So 100, let's just round it up to 100 then. 100,000.
So that 30 that
That's
you
my
see
motion.
there, which is 10,000 a year,
Yeah.
would become 100,000.
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so your motion is to approve the recommendations as presented with the additional funding for
To fan.
FAN.
Yes.
Okay, is there support for that motion?
Support. I don't care.
Shannon on this one.
Fine.
So, further discussion?
I'm just
Trustee Wade.
curious. What's that?
Trustee Wade?
Yeah, with the court, I know you watch the money really closely. I'm just curious, you have almost $34,000 for transportation for Uber cards. Is there a way you monitor that, or do you just kind of, how does that work?
We order the cards or the bus passes. We keep track of all the numbers. We have a spreadsheet of who gets what number, and so we know what comes in, what goes out.
Okay,
We have to do that for the federal grants.
okay, perfect. And then I had one other question here. For the money going to the fire and police, it says this could be allocated to one or the other, or they could split it. How are you going to decide who gets it? Are you going to arm wrestle, or how's it going to
We're going to
work?
give them sharp sticks and let them go at it. Actually, that's
I would love to be in that meeting.
one of them's armed, my money's on them, right? I would just suggest that you split it. It's not a ton of money, it's just helping defray costs. I would just split it down the middle.
Okay. All right.
Are you amenable to that,
I am,
Ms.
yes,
Meltzer?
yes.
Trustee King?
Good.
Okay. Have that reflected in the motion. Trustee Wade?
All right, that wraps it up for me.
Okay. Public participation, going once. Going twice. I kind of felt some movement over there, so I'm like, okay. Close public participation, roll call.
Clerk Melser, yes. Trustee Matuzak?
It was actually Shannon.
Oh, was it? I'm sorry, I thought it, you said Matuzak. I apologize.
Yes.
Trustee King? Sorry.
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Supervisor Gillaham?
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Yay.
All right, thank you, everyone. Well done. Thank you. Thank you, the committee members. Public comment.
Ken.
Oh, I thought he.
Thank you.
Mr. Pearl. Is the popcorn out there?
President, I made sure you got your
Sam
hat.
Bushel.
Hello, as a pretty long-time resident of the area, community, I've had my first actually interaction with the police department by filing a complaint. As you all know, because I sent you emails after the fact, because I submitted the, went in, took quite a while to submit the form, but also I had attached a whole bunch of evidence. And I waited a week to get, it said you could call in 72 hours to get the file, actually get a copy of the complaint. I waited a full week, called in on the Monday, and to my surprise, first of all, they at the records division, they didn't have any record of it, and so they sent me to the officer that actually would have been in charge of assigning him. And she said, "Oh, it's never been assigned to anybody." And she got worried, so she sent me to another phone, and I left a message, but I never got a call back. But when I didn't get a call back, I emailed all you folks and also Chief Karinji. And I figured the next day I could go in and get that report, and sure enough, I did. I went in, and the report, I had to pay $10 for it, which is, okay. But what was funny about it is, it had never been assigned. The officer that took the report was the one that turned out to be, he closed it up, and he post-dated the closeout date, as I told you all, and it's on the record right there. I've got the hard copy. Post-dated it and just said closed it, and it was never assigned to anybody. Luckily, with all my emails and my putting on social media, Saturday I got a letter from the police department, and they reactivated it. And because all the evidence in the report that I paid $10 for, it didn't have any of the evidence that I'd submitted. And luckily, though, the part that they had me handwrite, I had right on there that I had these attachments. The attachments weren't there. Along with that, once I finally got the report, which was a week ago last Tuesday, Then in the Clinton Township, you then have to call and get a hold of Towner and Towner. And I called them right away, and all you get is a voicemail there. There are no humans that you talk to. Another week goes by, I have never gotten a call back, but I have taken the time without leaving messages to call repeatedly all their working hours. It's always strictly a message center. I think this is a real problem for the citizens of this township. And like I said, I've been here a while. First time I ever had to go to the system, so I haven't been a big burden on the system, but this was a real problem. There's nobody around. Good enough. Well, there again, we have a prosecutor's office that there's no humans at, and they don't call back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bushel. Mr. Pollock.
William Pollock, 18658 South Nunley. Here again about my road and the project. I appreciate the letter I got from Mr. Gilham, and I assume you came to the house, Mr. Wade. Sorry I wasn't there. I wish I would have been, but we went up north for the weekend, so. I am very concerned about my road and the restoration that's supposed to happen. There's been no work been done on the road or any of the restoration in the last 3 weeks. The only thing that they've done is replaced one mailbox one day, 2 people from FERPAL on my neighbor's mailbox. That's the only thing that's been done in the last 3 weeks. The road is continuing to deteriorate with, all I keep getting is we're gonna do this in the spring. Spring hit us over a week ago and still nothing has been done. I'd appreciate someone to tell me who I could contact and who is gonna give me a timeline on when any of this is gonna happen. Because from my point of view, from past practice from this company and the people doing this project, you get nothing. So I appreciate your time and I appreciate any response I can get. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pollock. Paul Schorsch.
My name is Paul Schorsch, Ultra Mega Precinct Delegate from Clinton Township. I used to be Precinct 23. I'd like to ask you a few questions. Did you know we're purchasing bad voting machines? Did you know the voting machine failed in the school that we vote at? Dan Kress, you, all right. Another one was brought in. Was that calibrated? And the other thing is, our clerk is still passing out altered voting records. I want to know, did she destroy the electronic voting poll? Did you tell her to do it, if she did it? And I want to check out everything that's been happening with our elections. As far as I'm concerned, I don't trust them. When people come out from the school and they say, look, this machine's not even tabulating my vote, Jim Perna's daughter, who's our county commissioner. So listen, we're purchasing bad voting machines. You guys get your jobs with these bad voting machines. Let's not buy those anymore. Let's do a hand count, paper ballot, because we can't rely on them. They failed. Scott Ogney came here and spoke about stuff like this happening. So we got to put a stop to this stuff. Ask My Tax is going to be on the ballot. There's going to be a petition coming around. This is the road, Moravian. That's fraud. They paint over the potholes every single year. It's catastrophically bad. The citizens, I'm sticking up for the citizens of Clinton Township, and we're sick and tired of being ripped off. The road should be fixed, not painted over the potholes. Now, you drive on the road, we all drive on the road. We all know it's bad. Would you call yourself a career politician driving on the same bad road for years and not fixing it? You know, it's really sad, you know, what's going on here. You know, bad voting machines, altered voting records. I mean, what's going on here, you know? You guys approve of this stuff? Come on. It's got to stop, man. I mean, it's got to be done with. Listen, I'm part of the Lotus Standing investigation. This is going through. 3 officers involved in this case now.
15 seconds.
15 seconds. They were an hour late for the last meeting I went to. You know why? Homicide. 84% up in Central Michigan, homicide.
Thank you, Mr. Schorsch.
That's what's big here.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Support.
Moved by Treasurer Aiello,
I support.
supported by Trustee King. All those in favor, or excuse me, roll call.
Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Clerk Melcher, yes. Motion passes.